January 21st, 2026, regular school board meeting. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Again, I'd like to welcome our large audience here and in attendance tonight, and we'll begin with the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And before you move forward with adopting the agenda, Director Fast would like to make a amendment to the agenda in regards to policy 4260 facility use. Brief. All right, so you want to add that?
Can we call us back in from the executive session to the regular here, because it wasn't recorded before?
It wasn't recorded when I called it 7.
Not when we close this off, so just say that we're returning.
Okay, we're returning from executive session into regular session. 5 o'clock. Okay, so yeah, so I'd like actually to get a little more information, so we're a little more clear for the board members. Okay, so what we want to do is
Well, Morgan, if I could.
yeah, go ahead. I'd rather you speak.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to add to the agenda discussion for policy 4260 on facility use. And that will be during new business.
That'll become item C.
I understand.
That discussion only.
Discussion only.
Thank you.
So it'd be up item C under new business section 8.
So the request is to amend the agenda.
Motion to amend the agenda. And if there's a second.
Well, second.
Okay, got a motion and second. Is there any question or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next we'll need a motion to adopt our consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to adopt the consent agenda. I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any question or discussion regarding the consent agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next item 5, recognition, the Meridian Middle School staff recognition.
We need to adopt the agenda.
We adopted that.
No, you.
Amended.
Oh, the minute.
Amended.
We're here anyway.
Wait a second.
We adopted the consent.
Right, we made an adjustment to the agenda.
Okay, then I thought Jasmine made the motion. Or that was just for the amendment. Okay, so I need a motion to adopt our agenda for the regular school board meeting.
I will make a motion to adopt the agenda with the amendment.
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any questions or discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, Meridian Middle School staff recognition.
Hi, good evening. So, yes, we're happy to be here. So for the out there in cyberspace, I'm Robert Kratzig, principal of Meridian Middle School, with Jill Hammock, our assistant principal. And we are here tonight as part of our kind of annual tradition of recognizing some of our staff. Each school does this throughout the year. And so tonight is our night to talk about some of the amazing work that our staff is doing here at the middle school. And so we have decided that we're going to recognize our Guiding Coalition team members. Some of them are here with us tonight, and so we'll have them come up in a second. Some of them couldn't be here, but you're going to get to hear about the amazing work that they do nevertheless. So to kick this off, you know, we've been doing PLC work here in Meridian for a number of years. And one of the things that we have really worked on this year is really building up our Guiding Coalition. And so we're not going to get into the nitty gritty of what a Guiding Coalition is, but wanted to call your attention to this excerpt. This was an excerpt that we read. It's from a book as part of our Guiding Coalition retreat back in August. So even though everyone tells you not to read PowerPoint slides or give a presentation, I'm going to read this to you because I think it is really important just to kind of ground you in what we're thinking about when we're talking about our Guiding Coalition. So no one person, no matter how competent, is capable of single-handedly developing the right vision, communicating it to the vast numbers of people, eliminating all the key obstacles, generating short-term wins, leading and managing dozens of change projects, and anchoring new approaches deep in an organization's culture. Putting together the right coalition of people to lead a change initiative is critical to its success. And so as we think about our guiding coalition, we really feel like they are the right coalition of people. This quote in summation is about getting the right people on the bus, and we really feel like we have the right people on the bus for our guiding coalition, and you're going to hear a little bit about the work that they are doing here tonight. So I know some of them couldn't be here, but some of them are here. So I'm just going to read their names. If you're here, come on up. We're going to make you stand here awkwardly while we talk about you. So each department has a leader that's part of this. So our English department lead is Bailey Drake. Our math department lead is Heather Cavidal. Our multilingual lead is Judith Zink. Our PE health lead is Courtney Stacy. Our science lead is Frank McGowan. Our social studies lead is Marcus Holland. Our special education lead is Christula Reardon. And Cynthia Richardson, our tech TOSA, is also part of this. So 3 of them tonight. Don't clap yet. We'll talk about what they're doing, then we can clap at the end for them.
Okay, so when I think about this group of people and the mindset that they bring to the Guiding Coalition, they come early and are shockingly on time for these meetings that happen almost every week and have the ability to stay deeply present and focused during those early morning meetings. Something that I think is exemplary in this group of people is their ability to think about students as our collective responsibility, which is really the point of PLT, right? But in Guiding Coalition shoes, they're thinking about the whole building, right? Every kid, every system, every structure that we're creating and how that, kind of bleeds from the work that they do in their PLTs. They're a joyful group of people. I don't know if they're laughing at me or with me, but they can balance that joy and like positive collegial relationships with some hard conversations, right? And we don't always all agree at the table and there's dissenting opinions and voices, but it's always super productive. And that really helps as Robert and I think about how do we lead and what are people saying at the table and how might we need to think differently. And those early morning meetings are modeling this professional learning culture that we want them to help cultivate outside of just that team. So this purple, pink, we disagreed on that colored paper here is on a bulletin board in the place that we meet just about every week. And when we start any year with PLT or Guiding Coalition, we want to think about like, what is really our purpose, right? And we refine that every year based on where we've been and where we are and where we want to go. And I'm not going to read this whole thing to you, but we, kind of belabored over what are we like? What are we trying to do? But the line that really keeps sticking out to me is this idea at the very end of continuous improvement. And what we're doing, we're continuously trying to refine who we are as a Guiding Coalition and the work that they're doing with their teams. It's a pretty significant commitment that they choose to be on Guiding Coalition. So there's quite a bit of time outside of contract hours that's expected of them. So those meetings that I've been talking about, they are the ones leading their PLTs every single Friday morning. And there's a lot of work that goes into that. You can't just sit down and expect a meeting to go really well without any preparation. I think a lot of us in here know that, right? And so they're putting together these agendas ahead of time. They are doing ear hustle with different colleagues to figure out, okay, we're focused on 7th grade. What is 7th grade doing? Okay, so what protocols, what things am I going to be putting in the agenda to make this morning's meeting really meaningful? They engage in a lot of demanding systems design work. So as we're thinking about how do we want to build systems, they're often our sounding board, right? They're boots on the ground. They're very trusted people in our building. And so we trust them when they give us their feedback. They take a lot of risks, right? When they're leading teams, I'm going to try out a protocol I've never done before, and this might flop, and that's okay. Or they're the ones going into classrooms and trying, okay, I'm going to try something new, and I'm going to bring data back from that in front of my colleagues and be vulnerable in that moment. And this is really that job embedded professional development that they're taking on leading. When we think about the best professional development, it's ongoing and it's relevant. And nothing is more ongoing or relevant than PLT, right? They're talking about what are kids learning as a result of their teaching and helping teachers really focus on that day in, day out. They model a lot of humility and reflection. It's not easy to lead peers. It's not easy, even though they make it look easy. You'll see a video in a moment and it looks really easy. It's not, right? And sometimes we fail and we come back to the drawing board and we try again. Something new we're trying this year that they're also committing to is one-on-ones with Robert and I. So each one of them meets with us and talks about how is PLT going? What's top of mind for you? What's feeling sticky? What could we try? And then if that wasn't enough, we also throw, what about if we did student shadowing? So really getting, how do we get more of our teacher leaders in the shoes of kids, right? What does it feel like to go through a day as a kid? So pretty significant commitment that they're doing for us. So when we thought about who we wanted to highlight, there's there's no shortage of people in the middle school that we could highlight. There's really anybody there. But I was excited about Guiding Coalition because of the direct impact that they have not only on kids, but on staff as well. So I've talked a little bit about that, but thinking about specifically the work this year, they've helped us think through what are stronger, more responsive intervention systems for kids. So we're continuously trying to find, refine when. You've probably heard about that, what I need. They've been a huge piece of that. And how do we connect what they're doing with teams to what happens and when? There should be a direct correlation between those two things. There's been a huge increase in the use of data to inform and adjust instruction. If you walk into PLTs, they're almost always looking at student work, talking about student work, looking at data, deciding what are we going to do now based on what we see kids have done. So much talk and focus on essential standards and mastery, right? We talk a lot about we are a learning organization, not a teaching organization. It doesn't matter if we taught it, did kids learn it? And they're the ones leading those conversations. And also now we have for our, if we're talking about sixth grade students, they now have sixth, seventh, eighth grade and special ed teacher all caring about their progress, right? So kids are benefiting from having all these people having a vested interest in their success. And then for our staff, their leadership is making Friday mornings meaningful, right? It takes a lot of work to make those meetings feel like they have purpose. What's funny now is if I throw something like, oh, can you just take 10 minutes to do this, reflection, they're like, no, we've got a lot to do. We're looking at data and deciding on interventions. Like they are really capitalizing on the use of those mornings. And they're also creating an avenue for staff to have a lot more voice in the systems that we're working to refine.
Great. All right, so we wanted to give you a little sneak peek as to what this looks like. And so we're going to show you about a minute, I think, hopefully if this works correctly, of a video that is created in our science PLT. And so what you're going to see in here is a couple of things that I want you to think about as you're going through this. Number one, you're going to see how Frank leads his team and the way that he directs the work that they're doing. The other thing is thinking about, Jill, on that last slide, talked about there's like a bank of practices that we're trying to create for staff, right? So that if you have staff members who are thinking, gosh, we just really need to be able to do this, that there is now a protocol they can follow. And not only is there a protocol they can follow, but there's a video of somebody else doing the protocol. So you can actually see that live with your colleagues that you trust and believe in. And now you have people to go talk to who've actually lived out that protocol. And so thinking about that from that dual pronged approach, you're going to see what it looks like to be a PLT leader and to manage that workflow throughout this minute clip you're going to see. And then secondary to that, you're also going to think about what's the usefulness of this for our other teachers who are not part of this. But all right, let's see. Ooh, Joe?
Actually there.
I don't know. Oh, it says YouTube. Oh, control. Wow.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I'll get a timer going. And we're trying to go as fast as if we miss 2 minutes, but that's our goal is to kind of get through that in 2 minutes, just your 5 seconds, 3 stacks, go. Technique only.
They're doing a protocol called thin slicing. So what they're doing is they're currently sorting work that is actual student work from sixth grade, which is only one of their students. They're putting this into kind of levels of mastery of what are you seeing from this work.
All right, fast. Less than 2 minutes there. Okay. Sweet. Now, what I would like you to do is kind of go through each one and find one that kind of is your exemplar of that stack. So one paper out of each stack that really kind of shows what that stack, and it's not a questionable of like this one's approaching but could be meeting. Like what we mean by that is this is solid approaching. This is solid meeting. We'll just say that the yellow or pink here is technique sticky. Okay. So we're just going to flag your the ones you came up with, your indicators for technique. And then if you want to put an A for approaching, an M for meeting, and an E for exceeding. All right, ready for some shuffle? All right, stand up, move one leg.
Okay, so part of what you're going to see next, I'm going to hopefully stop it, or I'm going to stop it. What you would see next is them, now they're going to go look at somebody else's piles and see where do we agree, where do we not agree? And that's part of what's driving this conversation is, are we really aligned in what we think meeting standard is, or exceeding standard, or approaching standard. And so it's a really, really fun thing. And this whole video is 14 minutes long. We're not going to make you watch that whole thing, but I encourage it. It's exciting to watch. All right, Joe, where do I gotta
Maybe
go?
it's this one. Oh, no.
Nope.
Go back to.
All right, so just to wrap this up, we really believe that this is the right people. We started out by talking about getting the right people on the bus, and we really believe that they are the right people. These are not people who come just to participate. These are people who come to carry and lead the improvement we're trying to build in our school to make sure that our kids we've got this tagline of clear path, bold future for our kids. And how do we get them through, how do we get our staff through a clear path to get a bold future for our kids? And they're really the ones who lead that. So let's hear it for our Guiding Coalition. Any questions, comments?
Too many to list. All so exciting.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
I have so many notes going down. Like your purpose statement, love it. So everybody is on board on the same thing. I love it. And the collective responsibility. That one will stick.
It was really good to see things going good at the middle school again, right? I mean, when Todd came, I mean, it was great. We had new leadership, new energy and stuff, and pass the torch and what you've done since you've been in school. That been here. The other principals talk about how well to work together as a team with other administrators. And I shared James earlier tonight. I said it seemed like we finally at a point seemed like we got all the pistons are firing at our buildings. And I'd like to thank you and your team for the work that you do. So
Thank you.
I know you're dedicated and the work that you put into our bond, even though it didn't happen, I know you kind of took that personal. So that kind of showed your character, your deep roots to your community and being a principal. So I appreciate you in particular.
Thank you.
As I'm sure the rest support that. So thank you.
And your energy and being excited about your team.
Yeah,
Like
that's
that's
right.
very apparent.
Yeah,
So
the amount of time that Jill and I spend just kind of going like, aren't they great? Is a lot, actually.
Was it for you to switch places with a student? Cause that
Well,
was super.
yeah, it was
cool.
it was super cool. It was part of our fundraiser prize, right? So we had kids who sold certain things. They got on this big wheel and they spun the wheel, and she was just the student that got selected, but it was absolutely fascinating. So we can talk
Loved
more about it, but it
I
was really
loved
good.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Okay, we don't have any public comment tonight, so we're on item 7, reports with the PLC presentations.
Just
Let's go MHS science. It's about it on the jog.
We just go.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So here's the science department at the high school. Andrea Ames over here, Kelsey Morrison, and I'm Fred Wiley. And we all teach those things you can see there. The thing that we've done different this year than ever before is all of us teach one class. I think it's called Through class. Through something or other. And which has been fantastic. It's probably the best thing we've ever done since I've been around, because of the help that that trickles down to the students better than any other program we've done. So this is great. And you'll hear more about it, I'm sure, from us and everybody else. What do we want the students to learn here at the high school? We chose this essential standard, which I'm going to read that tiny little thing on top there, just to kind of show you how complicated it sounds, but then break it down real quick. Create a computational model to calculate the change in the energy of one component in a system when the change in the energy of the other components and energy flows in and out of the system are known. Okay, I just about lose it every time I read those things because I don't know what's. God, here's the deal. I picked this up at Trader Joe's on the way here. I didn't have my glasses, and so I still can't see exactly what it is. Oh yeah, they're right here. There we go. It has probiotics, so I'm not super excited about this thing. I guess it's tangerine, but it's warm, lukewarm, room temperature. So what that says to a kid is, how do I make this thing, how much ice, like precisely to the gram, how much ice would I need to put into this to make it 40 degrees, which would be maybe more tolerable to drink toluene or whatever else is in here. So that's what that is it's talking about the relationship between two different bodies that came together that are different temperatures, different sizes, as the concept. But the crazy thing is the first part of the word thing, create a computational model. Notice it doesn't say use one, it's there with a lot of guidance, creating a mathematical, pretty crazy model that will allow them to discover exactly how much ice to put into that thing, or any concept that has to do with thermodynamics. The other things on there, 6 through 12, we're trying to hit them with a bunch of thermodynamics, conservation of energy is in this, matter and energy relationships. So this is almost their last stop. They got one more in physics to kind of get all this buffed out, but that's what this target's at. And the last two bullets there, develop rational thinking and encourage students to logic their way through the math. And I love that next statement there, rather than just plug and chug. I like plug and chug. It has its place in science. But man, for a kid to actually come up with something that goes on the whiteboard is very complicated and feel success about. I know where some of those things aren't even numbers, they're triangles or something. To know where that stuff came from and what it's going to do for them, it's just pretty awesome. And maybe they're the last thing. Oh, and then in real life, where's it going to help a kid out if they're going to HVAC, or if they have their own kids and the kids stand there waiting in front of the refrigerator trying to decide what they want for dinner, and the parents are going crazy. Be able to discuss thermodynamics and how that applies to regular people. Okay.
So because these standards are so complicated to look at, we tried to break it down into to 4 easy targets that we can assess individually. And the idea behind that is we're trying to give these as formative assessments so we can catch early on when students are struggling. And so we broke it down into 4 targets, each of them getting a little bit more complex as we go. So I'm not going to read them out to you because we've got limited time, but it's kind of the concept of, can you tell me that the final temperature of 2 objects is going to be in the middle when the objects are the same mass? Can you calculate that? So that's target 1 and 2. And then if the masses are different, can you tell me that the final temperature is going to be closer to the bigger object? And then target 4, which is a big stretch, it's where it gets really hard, is can you calculate what that final temperature is going to be? So the idea behind this was that we can break it down into these standards, we can individually test, and then we can figure out, is somebody struggling with a conceptual understanding or are they struggling with the math understanding? Which takes us in.
So we assessed this, and what we did then is we looked at all of our data, and we're really viewing this as a department thing, like Kelsey students, Fred students, my students, they're all our students, and we have collective responsibility for ensuring that they all meet standard. And how can we use our T3, which is our tutorial time, intervention time, to specifically target by student by standard. A student who doesn't necessarily get everything doesn't necessarily need the same support. Like student A, student B might need different things to get to the same place. And so how can we be strategic about that? So what we did, and this is taking 2 different points in time, like we assessed target 1 and 2, and we did this, and then we repeated it later with 3 and 4, but for the sake of like broad brushstroke intervention, we're kind of talking about it together. So what we did, if we look at the data on target one we said was conceptual understanding. So every single student from all 3 of our classes who was like, hey, I don't even know like what is the right ballpark where this temperature is going to be, they came into my classroom and we all worked on that, all 3 of our students. Then the remaining students who still needed support but understood that, but then needed help getting to the quantitative reasoning, we then split them between Fred and Kelsey's classes, and we even intentionally swapped their own students. So all of my students went to them and then they traded. So it's like somebody different is explaining the same idea. Sometimes you just need to hear it a different way, or the 4th time from somebody else, kind of thing. So being really mindful about how we're using our tutorial time to collectively support all students in the school, not my students, not their students, our students, kind of thing. And then we reassess that later, which will come up on the next slide. But that's the concept of how we're trying to really be thoughtful about using our tutorial, our T3 time, to like target this kid needs this thing and this other kid needs this different thing, and how can we like capitalize on our strengths and the time built into our schedule for that.
So this final data is from the summative assessment. We kind of broke it down. Targets 1 through 3 are really the need to knows, and then target 4 is kind of that extension. Nice to know. I think that for a lot of people, even in here, to calculate the final temperature of 2 objects of different size, that'd be hard for anyone. So we did get pretty good success there, but we really wanted to focus on the conceptuals, so targets 1 and 3. And then just finding that middle ground with target 2, it's a much simpler mathematic part. So we were really happy. I think our collaboration with T3 really panned out. You can see, we don't have the comparison scores, but the scores across all 3 targets, across all 3 teachers are significantly higher. And I think it really is having to do with that collaboration and dividing and conquering with getting kids the support they need before they get to this final test. In terms of what will we do once they've learned it, we do have a lot of standards that we're cramming in. We were so happy with this level of like these numbers that we were like, all right, we're ready to move on. But in this unit, we did have a lot of extensions built in, thinking about target 4. That's hard for most people. That's an extension in itself. We had worksheets that had multiple tiers of difficulty to kind of push students who were ready for it, but also had easier options for kids who needed that.
Yeah, so to wrap up, I think this is just a kind of a glimpse into the direction that we're moving as a department. It's really fun, and I have to say, like, I think we're firing on all cylinders, and I'm super stoked about the work that we're doing because it's like gaining traction in the building. Like a colleague told us in Guiding Coalition a week or 2 ago, oh, I was assigning students to T3, and they were like, oh, well, I have Miss Ames, but she's closed, but like you could assign me to Morrison or Wiley or whatever, like it's fine. And so students are recognizing that that like we really are a team, and we're seeing that show up in like student outcomes, right? Like, and obviously this level of intervention isn't everything, right? This is when we talk about priority standards, like this is the thing in this unit that is, we're teaching a lot of other things and we're assessing a lot of other things, and you can't do this for everything, but it's also creating, I think, a culture where students know that they can get support from all of us in the department, and that they know that we have like a really strong commitment to shared formative assessments, and not everything does get the that response, but we are aligning on all of the assessment that we're doing. And also recognizing that as we do this, like there's so much like collective strength in the group, but what Kelsey brings to the table and what Fred brings to the table and what I bring to the table are different, and that we're better together, right? And that is like such a real thing anywhere you go in the world. Like it shows up in schools, but it shows up in like every workplace ever, right? And so like how can we capitalize on the strengths that that the team brings to the table, and also model that for our students, right? Which is real world. So again, the like last piece is that is really just beneficial for everybody, and also like really great for us, because I know I can speak for myself, that it's like it feels so good to be able to show up and like work together, and also have it. It's like really hard to be like, yeah, my students like had a hard time with this question, but like Kelsey's students crushed it. Like, Kelsey, what can you share about how you taught that? And maybe it's just the day, but maybe it's not, right? And like recognize it, like the level of vulnerability that it takes to be able to just like look at data and say that doesn't reflect on me necessarily as a person or even as a teacher, but also we're looking at practices that really benefit students, and that is what we're using our Friday time for, and it's making a difference, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's it.
Thank you.
So thank you for having us.
I just want to thank you as a parent of a high school student, where my perception would be that science just maybe don't come so naturally to her. You guys have made it approachable and safe that she can go ask for extra help when needed and whatever she needs, because she is seeking a biology degree. So even though it's not something that comes natural, you guys have made her successful. So thank you.
Yeah. Good family.
Really great.
Bears.
Yeah.
2 things. You guys were talking about the extensions, like what will we do if we know they know it or whatever. Is honors chemistry still an option for people, or?
Not this year, because we Everett Community College dropped all of Whatcom County, and we had to pivot to Central, and that was not an option. Central, so not at the moment, but it doesn't mean it's for everything, but for this year it's not.
Okay. And then I had a question about the curriculum. This is just like kind of speaking like anecdotally, but I know my sophomore year, which was 2 years ago, it was kind of interesting. You know, I think it was the second year of using Open SciEd, and we were definitely adjusting to it. Have you guys like seen improvement, like gotten more comfort with that curriculum? Like, are students liking it more? That'd be my question.
Would say overall students are getting more comfortable with it. I think we're all kind of, it's so different from how I learned when I was in school, and we're kind of adopting to what does it really mean to do science? And it's not just memorizing facts and vocabulary, but it's questioning things and problem solving how you could figure those things out. And from a teaching perspective, I've learned so much from this curriculum. I think it really provokes a level of deep understanding that traditional curriculums don't really get to. And there's drawbacks. I mean, some students don't like that, especially if you're used to traditional thinking. It can feel really hard and intimidating, and it doesn't always feel like learning because people are like, oh, well, I haven't had to memorize the periodic table. And so we've gotten, I would say in my classes, a little bit of pushback on that. But I would argue, having been taught in a traditional way, at least from my perspective, I really think it pushes you towards like, what is science, not just memorizing facts, but knowing the process and asking why constantly. We were asking why to each other the other day, so it's just, yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
I was curious, but we are doing a lot more with student voice. If you've heard student voice about this curriculum, I've heard student voice about this curriculum. So I'm just curious if you guys have. I know Mr. Wiley has, because you have my student.
Yeah, just be nice. That's a good question, Logan. I think you're, for the students that don't go off to college, I think it's super beneficial because a lot of the stuff we talk about is very tangible, like heat pumps. Half of us have those to run our house. So it's lightning, all the stuff we did when you were there. For the college kid though, the saving grace is most of the kids who will go off to college are ready to, learn and do stuff. They're already pretty equipped up here, but they'll be behind, in chemistry at least, of a C-home kid. And that kind of grates me inside pretty bad, or a Ferndale kid, or an LC kid. That really disturbs me. But but those kids are sharp, and they're going to become just as sharp in college as they would have if we would have had them go with the old fashioned way. But not every kid goes to school after high school, and the majority are going to benefit, I think, from all the conceptual stuff that we're doing.
I think a lot of it too is like, for me, when I think about like, what is science and what does it look like to be able to like have capacity to do anything, which also includes outside of science. We want to think about the world that we live into, right? Which is so different than 20 years ago, where we didn't have a computer in our pocket, where I can Google literally anything, right? There's so many things. And even now when you think about AI access and how much stuff is there, and then as a human, I need to be like, okay, but can I like think about, does that seem reasonable? And does that evidence really support that? And like those skills and the process pieces are arguably the most important things. Like anything like just Google, like how many valence electrons does this thing have? Like you can Google that stuff. If you have it here, that's really helpful. But what does it look like to send people out in the world who are ready to engage with anything, which is going to be so much bigger than what you would encounter in my classroom, right? So do I have the thinking skills and the reasoning skills and the ability to like, hey, can you tell me more about that idea? Or like, how did you get there? And like asking questions and talking to people. And that is such a shift because it's different from how all of us learned science, and changes really hard, but also the world is changing and students are changing and science is changing, and so it's for sure like it's an adjustment for everybody. Yeah.
We're in middle school science.
Go for it.
Oh, great. Well, thanks for having us tonight. We really appreciate being here. And here we are 3 years in a running. Our science department, myself.
Spencer, 8th grade science.
Steve, I do 6th grade science.
Yeah, my name is Frank, 7th grade. And we have a goal right now by building better thinkers. We want the middle school to be first in the county in science. So that's kind of our goal. But our goal tonight here is to peel back a little bit of that curtain on what we do as a team. We really appreciate that time that we have on Fridays together. And we didn't anticipate the nice setup that Jill and Robert gave for us. And we're really just going to play the next 15 minutes of that video. So just lay it out. But we wanted to just kind of get in and say we spend time as a PLT working over a 4-week process. And we wanted to kind of give that overview. And that 4 weeks is a grade level. So we'll do a 6th grade for 4 weeks, then we'll do a 7th grade for 4 weeks, then we'll do an 8th grade 4 weeks. Tonight, we're going to highlight an 8th grade one, but we kind of go through the same process every time. And this process up here is kind of what we do. We start in that first week is we come together, and whatever's going to be the standard that teacher of that grade level wants to focus on, that's where we begin. And we norm ourselves on that standard by making a progression, okay, of what do we want students to be able to do. And so by getting into that progression, the 3 of us and any other teacher who comes into the room at that point are really understanding that standard and what it means so that we become aligned. And that's helping us a lot as an individual teacher, if it's my unit, I'm getting a lot more feedback because I've had a lot of experts on the side telling me if it's not my grade level, I'm seeing how that vertically aligns. And I'm also thinking, where can I make connections? From there, we move to what we call a consultancy protocol. And usually that's something someone will bring an assessment, a final project they want to have students to be able to do. And we flush that out. We talk as a team. We try to bring in other experts. Maybe that's someone from learning support. Maybe that's someone from our ML specialist. And so we can get their perspective also on what does this assessment look like? And is it really accessible for all students? Are there any modifications we need to do? And then we take the next 2 weeks and we kind of a little bit of what was in that video that was shown earlier is we really get into the heart of the matter and we dive into student work and we bring student work, and that's where our conversations are. And we're trying to figure out where are our students and how are we going to be moving our students towards the next levels. So that's kind of the overall process.
All right, so what do we want students to learn? Because our standards they're not 6th grade standards, 7th grade standards, 8th grade standards, they're all middle school standards. We're never teaching the same standard, but we are teaching the same skills. So we're always looking at all of the student work through the skills that we want to build before we send them up to the high school. And so when we do that progression part, we're looking at a standard per se that we might already be in. So we're going to look at a standard that the teacher has in the upcoming unit, but we're going to focus on skills that they have coming up in that standard. So we can all kind of look at those skills together. So in Spencer's unit, their standard was described that when the arrangement of objects interacting at a distance changes, different amounts of potential energy are stored in the system. And so that's really focusing on constructing explanations and arguing from evidence. So we think about what do we want students to learn? We make a progression. And Spencer and I led sessions in our LID days about this. But basically, we're trying to take that complicated standard and break it down into student-friendly language so that students can look at this progression and go, I put myself in approaching because I can describe the forces between 2 objects at a distance as repulsive or attractive. But what do I need to show to move up to that meeting stage where we want all students to go to? Or maybe I'm in meeting, but what do I need to do to extend myself? So this is kind of our student-facing way of breaking down the standards. But then we move on to the thin slicing part where we're really focused on skills because that helps all of our students. And that's where Spencer's going to take over. Good job.
So we take our student work. This time it was based around explanations. We talked about that standard being like describing and explaining what's going on. And that standard is actually for the unit I'm in right now that we started after winter break. And this work is from my last unit that we were working on in December. But they're writing explanations always. constantly trying to explain whatever we're working on. So we take this and we do our thin slicing, like you saw in the video, where we break it down and we build progressions like that. But we love that so much for the three of us that we were like, well, we can do this with students too. And it makes it way more impactful than me standing up at the front of the room and saying, okay, this is what maybe a good version of this could look like if you did everything right. And here's your checklist and you can get here, versus we take it and we put it we take the written and we transcribe it, and I'll give kids 8 or 9 of these and say, okay, you guys have your list of things we're looking for, sort these work samples, and then tell me why. Why have you put things in different locations? What are you seeing that you look at that and you go, oh, wow, that was a really good explanation. That got something. So not only are they seeing the skill, but they're also maybe picking up, what did I miss when I was explaining? And I had something maybe in this red zone that was really basic. And now they're seeing other students, and pretty much every time we've done this, students are like, an 8th grader did that one. That was from one of and I was like, yeah, that's work that you guys are capable of doing. And so we see good movement of kids that aren't quite getting it yet, going, oh, I could add those numbers. I had those graphs. I could have gotten that extra detail, like small little steps that add a lot to the skill of actually explaining what's going on, which is really pretty cool. And you do see students, I usually try to line it up where we do one of these pretty close to the next time we're doing an explanation too, to be like, hey, remember, like, we need some numbers. We need to think a little bit more specifically about what we're doing. And then for our students who are in this kind of green, maybe even some that are in the blue zone that are kind of pushing, like, that is a pretty excellent explanation of what we were doing with sound. It kind of pushes in that green section, what can we do? What is that difference between someone that's got a pretty good handle and someone that's really able to explain deeply what's going on? As well as maybe for some of our students in the green or blue, like, sometimes it's, can you be more concise? Can you get your point across, taking less time, using less words, but getting the same level of detail? And sometimes they see those things that they can do just to push that little bit more of, we can do a little better. We can add a little bit more detail. We can trim some extra stuff out that didn't really relate to what we were talking about. Yeah, I just think it's a really cool process. Like I said, we love doing the thin slicing so much, because it really helps us kind of dial in on what skills we're asking of students and what seems reasonable. I think it's cool for my 2 colleagues, the grades below me, to see what their former students are doing in 8th grade too, of like, we really are seeing that building skill of, they're getting pretty good at these explanations overall. So it's been pretty cool.
Right, so kind of wrapping that back up, looking back of this PLT process and why are some of those reasons why we do it and we appreciate it, is one, that constant vertical alignment, 6th through 8th grade. And we hear that a lot, like, these are our students, but they are in fact, unless someone is transferring in, we have taught all of those students. And at the same time, we're trying to say, how can each student improve from wherever they might be at that point? How do they improve a little bit? And maybe we're coming up with a scaffold, and that's that clarity of expectations is our next big idea that we share with students. And so maybe we develop similar scaffolds now that are being used in 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade. A lot of our terminology ends up being the same. So students don't have this cognitive process of, what does science mean? How do we make science more accessible? Like you were saying earlier, is that, well, we make a lot of these systems the same. Okay, and we're talking the same language, so they're like, oh yeah, I know what this is all about. And then they focus on understanding that science part. And so we take these new practices that someone's come up with, and we're trying them all the way to 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And so we're trying to, that 4th bullet point down is trying to build a better understanding of ways to push all learners to greater thinking. And that really is trying to find the students where they are. So we spend so much time looking at student work, so we can isolate and find out what does each student need to move to the next level. So that's kind of where we are. And so thanks so much.
Do I get to go first? Sure. Okay, cool. Love what you're doing. And I heard it was a similar pattern throughout the speaking points was language. came up from all of you, that you were speaking student-friendly language and that you're taking time and speaking the same language throughout the grades, and that's fabulous. Just been wondering, do you guys ever have time to communicate with the high school and so that you are all continuing on that thing together?
I mean, we'd like more time.
Okay.
I'm sure they would too.
Well, Andrew's got her
Yeah,
hand up, she's ready to go. That's great, because when I first came on the school board, we actually talked about that too. When I'm sitting in those chairs, I don't speak educator very well. That's not my background, and so hearing presentations that are something that me as the audience can understand in my language is huge. And so you guys are taking that same approach with our students in science. That's just a win-win, so thank you for doing it. We did have one question from Logan who popped out.
She had to go to work.
Oh, yeah. How often are there discrepancies between teachers' ratings of student work? And if so, what is the course of action when those disagreements come up?
Well, I think like, just like anything in life, the best stuff comes from disagreements. Cause you have to provide evidence for why you disagree. And so when we have disagreements, say, I've rated something as meeting and Spencer and Frank maybe made it approaching. Now we're gonna kind of have friction over that spot, and maybe I'm gaining a new understanding or they're seeing something new that I noticed they didn't notice. And so the disagreements lead to kind of the best stuff, because that's where we're getting like the new ideas. When we always agree, it's like, oh yeah, we all agree. We've been there before. But when we have those disagreements, it's where that new stuff comes from, where we're like, oh, we haven't really thought about explanations that way. Now, why do we think that that's actually meeting an explanation for this unit? And so it always leads to kind of, I would say the best stuff from our PLT meetings is when we disagree on something.
And it kind of opens the conversation too for maybe a better district-wide understanding of our grading system and our evaluation system.
Mhm.
And I've had these conversations with Mr. Stopping and Dr. Everett, and like, how do we get there? How do we get to that goal? So let's just.
Kind of along the same lines as when the student disagrees with where they think they're at. So when you ask to, you let the student reflect. And then you're like, well, maybe we're not seeing eye to eye. So what does that process look like?
Right. I think everything we do, we keep coming back to is evidence. We're evidence-based. So what we have the evidence. I mean, we're all, those conversations are great ones to have with students because they go a couple places. One, as an educator, it helps us understand where the student is coming from and maybe gives us a little bit more insight into what they were thinking at that point. And that's all, again, more evidence. If all of a sudden in that conversation, they're able to convince us that they have a higher understanding of a topic than
Yeah, maybe
they
they're able to display it in one way or another, but
For sure.
they're able to talk through it with you.
yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I love too, is this the third time like Michelle and I have been able to see you guys as a group and just see it again, that the everybody being so collaborative and watching everybody grow as teams. With just with the middle school and the high school science team, it's just so awesome. And we're seeing it in all the data and it's just great. So thank you.
I would echo that. I just want to call out what great questions from Logan. And we want to move there with assessment.
Yeah.
And to have our teams calibrating, you got to start there. We all know assessment is one of those dark pieces. We all grew up a certain way, assessing a certain way. We don't want to touch it, but we have to for our kids. So excellent work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool.
Can I ask a couple?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Sorry. What I love that you guys are leaning into peer review. I think that that's important, but whether or not our students, I guess, feel confident about how their teachers think that they're understanding the material. But they do care about what their peers think of them. So leaning into that and having them look at each other's work, that's awesome. On another note, What's the status of maybe science fairs? Are we bringing those kinds of things back? I would love to see the students work.
Not a topic we've.
Or I get maybe who's the person that might be the point of contact to get that role?
Science fairs at the middle school.
I think it's something we think about with the curriculum we're using. Some of that like application and presentation skills and things like that would have been part of other curriculums are not really present in this one. And kind of the project building of like making your own experiment like that could be something kind of cool. We try and sneak some projects in, and we're working them back in where we can too, to try and give kids that like engineering piece a little bit as well.
Yeah, really put that application to work.
Yeah.
Thanks, great.
Thank you.
Cool.
Okay, next up, we got the kindergarten board presentation.
After hearing from high school and middle school, you're gonna have to go way back to kindergarten.
Thank you.
I think it's still cool. I'm still friends with my kindergarten teacher.
Oh, good.
It doesn't seem like that long ago that Aria was in.
Everybody had the swag. I like that.
Oh, yeah, we're matching. It's
Yeah.
purposeful for tonight. This is the kindergarten team. I'm Sierra Wasley, Angel Lammy, and Jensen Bertrand couldn't be here tonight.
I'm Mallory Perry.
I'm Carly Johnson.
And I'm Taryn Tedero. So our PLC question was, what do we want our students to know and be able to do? So we've been running cycles around these two standards. So our phonics standard is students will recognize letters and know sounds they make. They use this knowledge to begin reading and sounding out simple words. Our writing standard is students will share information about a topic by drawing pictures, talking about their ideas, and beginning to write words or sentences to explain what they know.
All right, how will we know if they have learned it? So some of our assessments are, our first one is our informational writing CFS, which is criteria for success. So we want to make sure they have a topic, some details, labels, and a sentence. And on the right-hand side, you can kind of see this is a student-friendly checklist that we use in all of our classrooms. So the kids can kind of self-correct after they do their writing. They can go up to the checklist. Do I have all the things that I need in my writing, and go back and add any things to their writing. The other one, every quarter, we assess their letter sounds. So right now, when we did the assessment, we have taught like 19 letter sounds. And so right now we expect them to know 16. And then we also do some UFly progress monitoring. So UFly is our phonics curriculum. And so we assess CVC, consonant, vowel, consonant words based on the letters that we have taught. So this is kind of some of our data. So on the left, this is when they were coming into kindergarten. If they knew 5 or less sounds, you see all that red there. This is for the whole grade level. And then we just did the assessments recently. And so on the right-hand side, you can see a sea of green. So we're seeing lots of progress there. Right now, we only have 3 kids in the red. So we have 3 kids in tier 3 for letter sounds and only 2 kids in the yellow. So 2 kids for tier 2. So we're seeing lots of growth there, which is super exciting. Here are some informational writing samples. So on the left is somebody meeting standards. So they're meeting all those things on the checklist. We're seeing a topic, we're seeing details, we're seeing labels in their picture, and a sentence. They're using sounding out skills. So if you look at the word mammal, it's not obviously spelled correctly, but they're just sounding it out with the sounds that they hear and writing down those sounds that they hear. And then on the right, you can see they have their topic and lots of details, and they're starting to do labels, but they're just doing the first sound in words. So their next goal would be to sound out all 3 of the sounds in those words, or however many sounds that they're hearing in those words. And then this is what our UFly progress monitor looks like. So we had them on the left. You can see an exemplar here. We have them write had, rug, let, and win. And that kiddo is hearing all those sounds in those 3-letter words. And then on the right, you can kind of tell that the teacher markings on there. So like the first word, they had the A and the D. So they kind of are hearing some of the sounds in the word, but not all of them. And then same with number 2, they're hearing the G in the word rug, not all those sounds. And then number 3, they didn't hear any of the sounds, or maybe they don't know those sounds yet. And then number 4, they're hearing the I in the word win, but not that first or that last sound. So that's what we would work on with that kiddo.
So if students are not yet meeting grade level, but approaching, we implement something called the tier 2 instruction, which are the kids who are in the yellow that were in the spreadsheet. What tier 2 instruction looks like is quick, it's frequent, and it's targeted specifically on what students need. In our classrooms, this looks like 20 minutes built in daily. It's the classroom teacher's responsibility to work with those students on increasing their skill levels in those areas. So it might look like the classroom teacher pulling over one kid or a small group of kids to target those skills while the rest of the class is doing independent work. And in the beginning of the year, it's a lot more of that, just like kids coming over to the teacher and the rest of the kids doing independent work. Later in the year or around this time, 1 or 2 teachers might start to switch with each other. So like if I switch with Carly, Carly might take the approaching kids, and then I might take the kids that are at or above grade level, so we can kind of divide and conquer and be more efficient with supporting our students. Here's a video of Angel Lammy implementing tier 2 instruction in her classroom.
Oh no. Is that not gonna work, Jen?
That's not good.
That's
Protected.
That's okay.
protected. Do I protect it?
Yes.
Oh. Oh, wait, I'm accepting it.
Oh, thank God.
Okay. Now what do I do?
Control.
This?
Yep.
Control R. Look at that. Okay.
Good job.
Our new word is tip. Tip, say tip.
Tip.
Tip. Let's say it really slow. Okay, now let's move our circles for each sound we hear. Nice job. How many sounds are in tip? 3 sounds. Let's write a letter to match each sound. Let's start with the t. Say it as you write it.
So we could see Miss Lammy calling over a student to work independently with them, and it looks like their instruction was targeting encoding, which is writing the letters in a word.
Your presentation.
And then if students are needing more intensive intervention than just the tier 2 that we just saw, we have some reading support staff at the school who are wonderful, and they work with those students that are in the red on the spreadsheet a couple of times a week, and they work for 5 minutes at a time, and it's very targeted. So if a student doesn't know like the letter A, M, and S, they could just really focus on those 3 letters. And yep, it's one-on-one. And I think we have a couple pictures here.
They didn't.
Oh, they didn't go in. That's okay. So some activities that they might do for tier 3 is like very hands-on things. Like if there's a sand tray, the kid could trace the letter A in the sand to get that kind of fine motor and connecting the letters sounds to how the letter looks of the formation. There's also a fun game they play called Snatch It, where the reading support staff is kind of like versus the student, and they see who can grab the letter the quickest. So it's fun ways to engage the students and support their skill development.
This is our bump up wall that Jensen made for us. It's just another visual representation of our CFS. Just sometimes it might be a little bit easier for students to come up and compare their work. The goal is for students always to get a 4. So having their labels, details, sentence, and their topic. But we noticed that, some kids would just be like, I'm done when they get to a 4. And so we added a 5 to try to extend and push kids so that they have something more to work towards, even if they think they're done. So an example of that in a 5 would be another sentence or to continue writing more. So this is what another visual representation of the CFS. And to wrap up, our tier 1 alignment has been really reflective in our data. The kids that are needing tier 2 each year for letter sounds is shrinking and shrinking. And so because of this has been allowing us to focus or to shift our focus in tier 2 and tier 3 onto more complex skills. So in past years, right now, we've really been working on letter sounds, but this year we had a meeting today, and we were like, well, we think we're ready to work on more skills like encoding and decoding. So decoding is being able to read a word and sound it out, versus encoding is being able to sound it or to chop up the sounds and be able to write it yourselves. So our focus now is shifting more towards that just because of the growth we've had. Our next steps for tier 2 as a grade level is usually around January, we start to split kids up amongst the whole entire grade. So in past years, we've had 2 classes that focused on kids who have emerging skills. Maybe they're working on letter sounds, maybe they're working more on decoding. And then we have kids that are working on on-grade skills. So maybe just more of an extension of what we're doing in our phonics curriculum. And then we also have extension groups. So last year we did a lot with fluency and reading comprehension with those groups. So we call that our win time, what I need. So we use our data from PLC to look at what all of the kids need and then decide what each tier 2 group is going to do based on that. Yeah, are there any questions?
I love the bump it up wall. That's so cute. Can we go back to that? Oh, it's just such a great representation. So, I mean, you're going through the trouble of already making this and putting it up there. Do the students use this as an opportunity to do peer review?
Yeah, sometimes I say have a friend check your work, and then they go up and they say, oh, look, you're missing labels or whatever it is. Because sometimes they do just honestly not see what they're forgetting. So having a friend check too. Because sometimes for us it can get super overwhelming during writing time with all the support that some kids need. And so it's nice to be like, oh, ask a friend first, and then they go up or check the wall. So yeah, it's a nice tool for us.
So is that up there while they're doing the assignment, or is it after?
It's always up there. I mean, it's just it lives there. Yeah.
I love it.
It's good to see all the progress.
Yeah.
The excitement of the littles, I'm sure that's contagious. So thank you for what you do.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a lot of them. When I said a group of teachers, I was like, that's a lot of teachers. I mean, that's a lot of bodies.
Oh, yeah.
But if I do know how, what an impact that you're gonna put on your students, especially being kindergarten teachers, I think kids always remember their I do mine, I still run it from time to time. So she was animated and now we'll hold it.
Yeah.
So that was my favorite kindergarten teacher. I hope I'm the only one. But it's still years later, 50+ years later, still have their relationship with kindergarten teachers. I think they will all experience that something too. I hope that's the case, but thank you for being, and I know it's gotta be a tough job at times, until I got 9 grandkids, right? So I was like, who could teach kindergarten? Because they don't pay enough, whatever you're gonna pay it about. Because, there's so much, but I appreciate everything you do, developing those young minds, making them successful, so. Very cool.
Yeah, you guys definitely exude a large amount of pixie dust when you walk in, so, and it's great, and I love to see Taryn added to the group. That's awesome, the Meridian alum, so, thank you.
Yeah.
Good job.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And clearly, if the kindergarten thing, you have a kindergarten IT.
It's funny that.
Oh, we sat there all night not figuring that out.
Okay, last but not least, 3rd grade Teal presentation.
Glad you guys saved the best for last.
That's the one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys wanna run off the PDF or your Google Doc? You want the PDF or your Google Docs?
Does do the slides transition from?
They want slim transition on the Google.
The PDF is fine. Liz was. Yeah. I like this better.
Okay, thanks so much for having us. We're really excited to talk about our tier two intervention systems of support for our students in math. And I was sitting behind our teammates just now, watching them like rigorously head nod while the high school science team was presenting, because I think so much of what they're doing in their tier two and tier three support is exactly what we do in third grade and kindergarten as well. So that was so cool to see and to hear about. I'm Evelyn Aguilar.
Bryn Beatty. Katie Vance.
And Glenn DePeralta.
And Liz Vance is also on our team who couldn't be here tonight. And Rebecca Kratzig is our distinguished leader, admin support on our team.
So I'm gonna start us off just by talking, I feel like you've all heard a lot about tier two tonight, but my favorite analogy that I will share, in case you haven't heard it before, is the hand washing analogy. So when we think about all of us as human beings, we wash our hands before we eat, just as a hygiene practice, right? But if you're a nurse and you need to wash your hands, you're gonna wash up to your elbows because you need that extra layer of safety. And if you're a surgeon, you're gonna wash your hands up to your elbows and put on some kind of mask. And that has always provided a lot of clarity for me about what does it mean to be tier one? What does it mean to be tier two? So when we think about tier one, the diamond that is behind Dr. Everett's head up there, tier one is the hand washing. Like we're all doing that, right? And then when we look at our data and see, okay, there are these groups of kiddos who are not in tier one, they're not meeting the learning targets, so we're going to wash their hands and wash up to their elbows. And then when we think about tier three, like these are the kiddos who are pretty far from our learning targets where we want them to be successful, so we're going to wash their hands up to their elbows and throw a mask on them as like continuing to lift up their skill set and provide them the support they need to be successful. Traditionally, a tier two plan was kind of like a diamond, and we're just thinking about kids that don't get it, right? Like they don't get it a little bit or they don't get it yet a lot, right? But what we're seeing as we're looking at our data is there's a bunch of kiddos because of the great work that our colleagues below us have done, kindergarten 1 and 2 teachers. We've got lots of kids that are hitting the target. And so we're finding that a more effective model for our tier 2 instruction is thinking about moving that diamond or that triangle into a rhombus. So we're all the kids that get it, extending and then really extending and providing harder, more difficult, higher level thinking skills, as well as providing support. So kind of turning that sideways and reflecting it. And then I think the next slide is going to kind of talk about how we look at the data and sort kids.
All right, so this slide, I just showed some examples. The first one is an example of our formative data when we give kids a test in class. And you can see there are yellows, scores in yellows, greens, and reds. Greens, they got it. The yellows are the kids we want to focus on for tier 2 intervention. The reds are, they really need extra support. If we notice that majority of us have a lot of reds, then that would become a whole class intervention. We're not gonna pick those kids out. It's gonna be a whole grade intervention on that particular item. The second example is a typical common assessment question that the kids would see on a formative. And then number 3 is sort of an off document that we share among ourselves, where we put in the scores of kids after we've divided them into our tier 2 interventions. And then from there, we can see who made it, who got that target, who still needs a target. And then we talk as a team also, do kids need to move up into your section, the tier 3 section, or should we continue
using a tier two intervention, maybe a different teacher would teach that skill. But it's really good to share that information with each other because it's a whole class. There are almost 150, yeah, third graders. And so to see all of them all in one huge document where we can see who's reaching it, who needs extra support, it really gives us a bigger picture and it kind of, we've heard this all night. It kind of hones in on this our kids idea.
Yeah, so this is our third year of doing tier two intervention as a third grade team. The past 2 years, we've focused on like writing, reading, and math. This year, we are just focusing on math. So just to go back to what we're looking at, the colored data of all of our students is also how we then decide how we're going to group students. So the numbers at the top, you can change to what standards they are and then what questions are in the assessment that we give students. And as a team on our Fridays and our PLT meetings, we're looking at who had, really great data in this one standard. So, let's say Katie had really great results with her class. She'll take the group of tier two students who need to work on that skill and say, Katie, do your magic and do what you did with them with these kiddos to bump them up. And I think something that we're also just excited to share is just like, I think we can get really bogged down by all of the data and all of the things we need to do with our students. And I think something that we've worked really hard on in focusing on math this year is also just creating a really well-oiled machine and how we put students in groups based on what their needs are and how to really target that one specific skill in math. So when we are looking at our formative data in the slide before, we're thinking about what is this target that we want students to meet. That is what we're going to have as our exit criteria. So another version of what was in their original formative. So thinking about the end in mind, and then just like, again, intervention is a 20-25 minute chunk of our day. So how can we utilize that amount of time to just hit that one specific skill, that one kind of problem in multiplication, division, whatever we're working on. So yeah, we talk about who wants to do what. And this is just kind of an example of, how we sort kids for teachers. And we are also like, from the very beginning of the year, we are switching all kids. So we start by, kind of doing an intro week, like the second week of school or the first full week of whole days. And then as soon as we have our freshest data, we are switching students amongst all classes. And every week that we have fresh data in math, we're looking at that again and thinking about how can we move students around to best fit their needs. So again, our motto this year, I feel like, is really keep it simple. So our exit criteria is usually 2 questions. And we give them a 1 or a 0, like they got it or they don't. So the students that don't have it, we talk about how do we want to, again, like retarget and focus on helping them meet that need. And then students that are green get to work on extension.
So if we think back to that rhombus style, okay, all students, our collected third grade students, all get tier 1 instruction. That's that critical third grade standard instruction that we are all giving our students in our classrooms every day. Everyone gets that. The tier 2 groups where we switch and kind of focus on really targeted instruction on one specific standard or skill or area. That's where we're switching around and, maybe Glenn's using, something having to do with a multiplication standard, or maybe Bryn's working on kids who need additional at-bats with, addition and subtraction or something that maybe they didn't quite understand from a previous grade level. But then we also have that other group of students who not only do they get it, but maybe they nailed it. So when we're looking at our data, we can see broken down by question within our quizzes, we can see how they do. And then there are those kids who have 100%. I'm a parent of one of those kids that gets 100%. So, I know as a parent, I'm like, well, what are you doing for my kid too? So sometimes the kids already have it. And it doesn't mean that we just ignore them or say, well, you've got this, go play a game on your Chromebook. So when that happens, we want to extend their learning. One way we do that is with standards aligned math games or extension activities that, you know, maybe take the standard that we're looking at and push it farther. So for example, you can't really see this yellow sheet, but it is, it's a division duel. So basically you're kind of playing war against a partner, but you're pulling a division card. So I don't know if you remember third grade. Third grade is really focused on the core work of math is multiplication and division. Well, division feels kind of hard for kids when you explain it to them. But for kids who've already got the multiplication standards, they're a family, they work together. So if you can multiply, you can divide. And if you're getting 100%, then you're ready for that next step of challenging yourself. So not only does it keep them engaged, it keeps them moving forward and they're not just stagnating. You know, the kids who get it easily should also have something that's next, which is why we're not just focusing on, okay, the kids who've got it, the kids who need a little help, the kids who need a lot of help. But we're turning it on its side and now we're saying, yeah, the kids who need help, we want to focus on them. And the kids who've got it, we want to focus on them too. So that all kids are our kids and they're needing what they need and not just being bored and getting in trouble at school.
Okay, so to wrap it up, I was thinking as a teacher, I love tier 2. I think it's really effective and wanted to know what are the kids in my class, what are the kids in our classes thinking about it. And so I asked a couple of kiddos, and I love these quotes because they all tie in to our vision statement as a district. Dakota said, I see friends from other classes, and we know that that ties into our sense of kids developing a sense of belonging. I get to do learning at my level. That ties into our commitment to student growth and engagement. And Abel, the sweet little guy who grew like 300% on his already, probably in part due to tier 2 time, said it helps me with math. And again, that's our strategic plan of student growth and engagement. So a pretty slick system that we are still growing and learning in, but have also found a lot of success in. Questions?
Sure, why not? So, well, that was one of my notes that I took, as far as lining up with our strategic plan, and that you all introduced yourself with the cohesive unit to the students. I love that. And that students are traveling between your classes. So maybe making that transition over to middle school where you have multiple different teachers is so scary. So we're kind of laying that foundation already. And then my second part of that was always looking for at least one adult that students connect with. And this way they have 4 different opportunities just throughout a day or how many times they're doing it to make that connection with someone that they can really relate to. So I love that aspect of it as well. And then the other key point, we can get bogged down in data. So thank you for recognizing that.
Yeah, Rebecca really helps us.
That's great. I really appreciated that. And also to your talking point of that we do have something for the learning extension for the kiddos that are getting it, so we can keep them challenged and engaged. So nicely done.
Elements of belonging, that's huge. I haven't even considered that, but such an important piece that's just a peripheral. So crucial.
When you guys first said, oh, we're just focusing on that, and I thought, well, why? But that's great. And we're gonna have such great measurables, and it's good for everybody, even yourself, to feel successful at the end of the year. So that's really good to not have to dump all of your efforts into so many things and get spread thin. And we don't want you feeling exhausted.
We do provide tier 2 instruction within our classrooms for reading and writing and all of other things. We just don't share kids at that time.
Yeah.
For those subjects.
That's what first my no, and I'm like, I know what they're saying. But yeah, good job.
The data showed us that our largest gaps were in mathematics, correct?
Yeah.
Where we had a little bit more focus. So that's great that your energy is focused to where we do need to close them gaps. So.
Excellent, thank you. And I think collectively across all the presentations, 3 years ago when we started this, to be able to say, hey, we're going to be talking about how collectively, kids are doing better, and we have to be thinking about how are we assessing and looking at opportunities for them. It's awesome. So it's great. And the sharing, every single one, the sharing of kids doesn't happen when people keep their doors closed. It's awesome. Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, next on reports, Dr. Kurt Harville will present the 1/10 of 1% grant report. Yeah.
This one. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Stop. And we had two from Irene because it was three. So we'll just figure this out.
All right, good evening. So I get to talk about a grant that we've had for quite some time. It's been called a number of things, 1/10 of 1% grant. The actual title is Whatcom County Behavioral Health Services Grant. And just the purpose is to promote a greater ability for academic success for students who are challenged with mental health and substance abuse problems. We've utilized this grant for at least 10 years. In the time that I've been in this role, the grant has been with us and then continuing to go back. I looked back in board docs to try to find out exactly how far. I was not able to locate it exactly, but it has been with us for a while. Currently, the grant provides the district $118,000. This amount recently, I think last year, increased. It was 108 for quite a few years, and then it increased by 10%. We renew this grant every 3 years. And then our staff report to Whatcom County biannually. They report in January, and then they provide a report at the end of June. Just sharing what they've done, how they've utilized it. They don't share student names, but how they're reaching out to students to utilize the grant. And reaching out as we're in kind of uncertain times. Yes.
Would that be Aaron and his team that is creating that report, or who's reporting that back?
Actually, this report is created by Alicia is the one who documents it, Alicia Roberts. I reached out to Whatcom County to check in on, okay, what's the status for next year? And the response I got is it's expected to continue and expected at the same amount. So positive news.
Great.
So this year it's funding 2 positions. It's funding a portion of a counselor and then a portion of our family resource center, specialist, sorry. Previously, we've also funded an intervention specialist for drug and alcohol, and unfortunately, we lost that position last year with the budget. But so that's kind of the basics of the grant. What I wanted to give you is because I think this is where it connects, is how it benefits students, and if we tie this like the 3rd grade just did to the strategic plan or our commitments. This goes directly under wellness and support for families. So I asked each of the staff, hey, what does this mean in your world? And so one is a very lengthy one, but I'm going to summarize it for you. Our family resource specialist was working with a family who lived in our district. They had previously attended Mount Baker School District. And so when they weren't attending, we reached out to Mount Baker, met with family, got them enrolled. Attendance was sporadic. And so again, we reached out, connected with the family. Hey, what are the barriers? Working with you. The family moved for a variety of reasons, moved to, I want to say Las Vegas. And our family resource specialists connected with the family to help them engage so that they could enroll in school in Las Vegas. And so we talk about support, we talk about wellness, we talk about navigating the mental and the stress that comes from moving into a new city and moving new state. That's that's a pretty cool story example of how they're doing it. Another one was she connected a family and applied to a grant that helped them pay back rent. So connecting them to resources, not being able to pay rent is a mental, I mean, that's stressful. So supporting them in that way. They've driven parents without transportation so their kids can attend conferences. So they've picked them up, they've provided transportation. They've helped them apply for state food benefits so that they have food and evenings and weekends when they're not at school. Helped navigate insurance so that they could get glasses. At the high school, they use that time to make sure that there's a smooth transition between middle and high school for those students. Connect with middle school counselors and admin to improve communication between buildings in an effort to support those students. Connect with kids with families with outside services outside of school, mental health, substance abuse, so that while we no longer have our intervention specialists, we are still using outside sources to connect students. So that's a portion of what this grant helps us do. That wouldn't necessarily be able to do without it, but it's additional funding for us. So questions about this grant?
Well, I mean, we're gonna need that even more in this next year, so I think grant we get is like very valuable. I'm pretty sure.
Agreed. And as we are starting the budgeting process, we are already thinking of those conversations and what grants do we think are available. We're reaching out to the county about other grants to check on their status and availability. Because they do provide direct supports for our students.
Is the increase in grant, you said it's 10%, is that based off of CPI or who decides that it requires more funding to get that grant?
I think the county council made that adjustment. And each spring, myself and Alicia meet with the representative. His name is Joe Fuller from the county. And he sits down with us for about an hour. And we tell how we've utilized it, some of the challenges we're facing. We get to forecast what we may need in the future. But it's an example of Whatcom County partnering with local school districts to support the schools.
Because 10% is pretty good. You know, you'd expect like 2.8 or 2.4 or something like that. So, and it's pretty.
That was nice.
Pretty significant.
So is it a competitive grant or is there a grant available to each public school?
I believe it's a grant available to each public school.
Thanks for doing work on that.
Yeah.
Grants are a lot of work.
It's the enjoyable part of my job.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Harville. On to new business. First review, Whatcom ELC architect.
Yeah, no, we get to see our face again, just. Jay, hi. What do you mean?
They are.
I know.
We do get mistakes. Joe.
Yeah. Twins of birth.
So I'm staying through the end of the month. Yep. So this will be my last meeting. I'm excited to be here again. Sorry, what was that, Marty?
Yeah.
You said, so this will be my last meeting. I'm like, really? How's it?
Well, it'll be my last in this capacity.
You did some great things.
Just gonna have more meetings other times.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you. So last month, Dr. Everett talked about the selection process that we went through for the architect for the new Whatcom Early Learning Center. We really kicked off the project in that process last month. We've been working throughout this month to get the contract developed. So this is first reading for the architect contract with Dykeman Architects. And this will come back on February 4th for action. One of the things I wanted to note in this contract is we were able to take some lessons learned from past projects and build in, after consulting with legal, we were able to build in language to protect the district from areas where the architect might charge us a change order fee for things that they overlook. Dr. Everett was the principal at the high school at the time, so that was a lot of insight from him. So just really good that we were able to get some of those lessons learned built into this. This contract's been reviewed by the risk pool and also by our legal team. So we feel good moving forward with it from here. The budget for this, so this contract includes architect and the engineering firms. The budget for this is approximately 1.4 million. We did budget in the original C100 form, we did budget 1.5, just over 1.5. So we do have the budget allocated in the funding sources for it. And yeah, I think that's what I got on this. If you have any questions, please reach out to me.
Well, I'm glad you got that language in there. That was huge because I know CSG, when we built a high school, as you know, I mean, what was it, the main concrete walkway, I think James was off, it's like, that's not square. Or something get identified, so, but what happened before the language was changed is like, we identified it's wrong. They had to go rip it out and redo it, and the question was, I'm like, well, who's that cost gonna fall out? You guys are the ones that messed up, you know, but we're the ones, well, unfortunately, you as the owner, or you guys gonna have to.
You're responsible for it, yeah.
I was just, and yeah, that's when you're the principal, I think, and James just frustrated as I was, like, so you guys made the mistake completely, but you're gonna charge us for your mistake, so I'm glad you guys got that language in there.
So our legal counsel added about 3 pages worth of language to this contract.
3 pages. Good.
It was an architect error, not CSG, but
Okay.
but you hear from CSG because they're the
Yeah.
representative.
Well, that's good, learn from our mistakes and stuff, so save us some money.
I do, oh, sorry, I just wanted to say I appreciate that within this contract, the architect is, no, I don't want to say required, but within here that they would be meeting with potential staff and neighborhood community groups and other consultants. I think that's super awesome, so I love that in there.
Yep. Like I said, any other questions between now and the end of the month, shoot them my way. Did want to take the opportunity to thank the board. Just the support you've given me over the nearly 6 years I've been here has been great. Just the ability to do my job, run the departments, the financial support, the support to when I've sat here and I've talked about, seems like when I sit here, it's usually talking about the bad, right? But just the support that I've gotten has been amazing. So looking forward to the next steps, and I still get to be here with all my kids in the district and as a spouse, and also come back in a different capacity. So, yeah.
You did a great job while you're here, and then like the saying too, to be valuable, you have to be visible. I can't think of a time that I called or looked for you that you weren't made yourself available, or when can I meet you? I can meet you today, you know, whatever, you know, or the emergency things in the middle of the night and broken things after hours and responding and broken pipes at the elementary school and getting right on things. You treat our facilities like they were your own. I really appreciate it.
Yep.
As a fellow veteran, thank you for your service as well.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Your resourcefulness is amazing. You just always find a way, and that will be missed.
Thank you. I'm not gonna miss late night calls.
No. You won't, I guarantee.
Thank you, Jake.
Yeah.
Say thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. You're gonna be fabulous.
We'll actually have him back in his new capacity as
Good.
we have contracted or will contract with CSG, and this we will be your region, yes?
Yes.
Oh, good. That's good to hear.
We still have good speed time.
We'll look for approval of this, so that
Okay, let's see. Next new business. Item B, the school board will engage in discussion about increasing ML access.
So if there's no attachment, is this me?
This is you.
Okay. I had a conversation with Jared last week. And I wanted to bring to the board, maybe having the opportunity similar to, what city and county councils do in order to create more accessibility, that when we send out announcements for our board meetings, if we could also have in there that if anybody, a little note at the bottom, saying that if anybody requires a translator or translation for this meeting, please let the school know in advance, 24, 48 hours, whatever it needs to be. And we will do our best to provide that for you.
So, the school district would provide it?
That's my thought.
Okay,
If we require, but
Yeah.
we have access to
yeah.
several.
So then they would come to the meeting, or would it be on an online thing, or?
I think either or. It sounds like, my understanding is that we do have translators that are available online. So could tap in via Zoom, or be in person if they really love it. And want to be here that long. But yeah, just to create more accessibility for our meetings. And if there is some sort of language barrier, having that be an option.
How would we, is that an app overtime pay? How would that work?
So we would have a few options. So one, we have a series and Lisa Gilchrist does a really nice job with the language acquisition piece. And so I would want to start with her and just say, what are our options? We have opportunities with translators. There is a cost involved with that. We also have translation devices that we have at each of our main offices that when we have board meetings, we can pull. There's actually a feature of those that you can broadcast a presentation, and then if someone goes to the same URL code, then translation will show up on their phone, and we've not tested with that. So I think there might be some assistive devices that we already have that we haven't tried that might satisfy that, but I would start with Lisa and be happy to have that conversation and see what our options are. We also know PowerPoint will do some translations, but we convert everything to PDF and combine to one. So we also work with Joe, but I think we have some options. And I think part of this also, I think for us to operationalize is think about the scope of this. Is we're just talking board meetings, or we're talking about school presentations too? So we want to think through that. We want you to give us some direction on that as well.
Don't they have those, I don't know, I gotta try it, but I discovered TikTok in February, but.
Time on your hand.
Yeah. But I never knew it existed before, and I found it, like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then I had my hearing aid, so that made it even better, you know. I watched the good stuff, but. But they got buds now that will translate, I guess, like you wear them like my hearing aids, and as you're listening, and several languages too, not just one, they said, but you could listen and you're hearing. I don't know if that'd be, we wouldn't give out loan repairs, I would assume, of course, but I think people that might have, if they were gonna be, coming to board meetings a lot. It would be another option, but I do know, I remember the amount of translators that we have in our district that are, there's a lot.
We've expanded, Lisa's done a phenomenal job expanding
Then, so, and then the same thing, sign language interpretation too, so, and then, Lainey's mom, well, actually, she could do it too if needed, so I called her last second. Her brother was, he was deaf, so she knows how to sign as well, so.
Sorry, I know that having somebody in person would be, I think. Most tangible and powerful. And I know that is probably expensive, but what about having the student? As like an opportunity, like in Spanish class, want to come and do, be able to be here, do something for extra credit, something like that. Or in other languages, there's just thinking outside the box a little bit if we needed somebody in person. But I do think, Lisa, I'm sure would have a lot of. things up her sleeve.
Yeah, I think I'd like to start with Lisa. I do know, there've been attempts to start an interpretation coursework through NCTA, and the difficulty there is that you need both written and verbal to a level, not to say it's not possible, but I think that's something that we would definitely really want to look at. But
How does that work in person? Would it be the writing only? Because if we had multiple languages going that.
Yeah, would be
That could be that could be a challenging atmosphere.
yeah, so one of the ways I've seen it happen is with maybe a bank of 20 devices, and so there's a device that the translator would use, and it broadcasts to people that look like little walk-ins. And so they would come get them out of a case. We don't have that set, right? And so that other piece, the translation device we have at each of our offices, actually utilizes people's phones, and it would be written only. Yeah, it wouldn't be auditory. So we'd want to look at that because that could create a barrier as well. Right. But I will start with Lisa back with a report.
Do we need to make a motion?
No, I assume you just directed me to do that.
Okay.
Okay. I'm there. Item 9, old business.
No, I'm gonna ask you to go back to 4260.
4260, I'm sorry. It's been a lot of my game there.
We have,
Yeah, pretty, it's like, yeah, there's good stuff on it.
so there was, it's not, no, this was the item that I requested be added to the agenda for discussion. So I don't expect the board to be as announced, but I just wanted to bring up policy 4260 is for the use of school facilities. And as it is written currently,
Are we looking at procedure or policy?
this is policy. Yeah, policy 4260. There's 4260 policy, procedure, and form. Yeah, there's a policy for this one.
We can pull that really fast.
Yeah.
Policy 4260. Okay.
And it sounds like the board discussed the form and updated the form last year around February. So the rental fees are all updated. But I bring this up because I was looking through the policy, and the policy itself hasn't been updated since 2014. So I think it would be great to have these on the same page and use the same terminology. And maybe most importantly, have some clarity on which organizations we do and do not want to be charging, particularly with youth organizations. At Irene Ryther, for instance, I worked for a year and a half going back and forth with Common Threads Farms, who was open and willing to provide a cooking club, an after-school cooking club on campus at Irene Ryther. But we had a lot of confusion with how to go about that administratively, and who do we talk to? What forms do we need to fill out? What kind of insurance? And so it took an extremely long time. And then once we got there, it was, okay, well, we have, this falls under the category of nonprofit, which under here is category B. And so then they would be charged roughly $974 to come to our campus and use a classroom for 9 weeks, one day a week for 9 weeks. And for a nonprofit organization who is surviving off of grant funding, having their staff come to our school and then have to pay $1,000, it's not feasible. So that's why it took that year and a half, because the first year, that's where we were at, and they're like, sorry, we don't have the money to pay your facility fees. Let's try again next year. So, speaking with spacing. Bryant
Michelson?
Michelson. I guess it was a couple years ago now. We came to an understanding then that if the program was co-sponsored by the PTA, then that would fall under category A. And that would mean that the organization or the vendor does not have to pay that facility use fee. And that's huge, and that increases the opportunities for private-public partnerships immensely. So since then, we now had Common Threads come for the 3rd year in a row now, offering cooking club. And currently we have Bellingham Arts Academy for Youth, for Bay, offering improv at Irene Ryther on Thursdays. And they offer scholarships on an as-need basis. The vendor provides scholarships on an as-need basis. And parents pay the vendor for these clubs. So I would like to, I guess the motion that I would like to make is to direct staff to look into this policy to figure out ways that we could create more accessible youth opportunities, youth programs, more accessible youth programs. I'm trying to say.
So for clarification, the nonprofits you're addressing are charging for student participation. So that would make it, if I could, for clarification, that would make it very similar to our MYAA sports programs, which does still pay the school custodial fees and usage fees, because we have to pay people to clean up after the students. So that would still be a consideration. And Jay's worked with our custodial staff, so there are things to take into consideration, that there are still expenses, even though they're a nonprofit. MYAA, I'll share that.
Yeah, no, I hadn't considered that.
How much do they pay if sponsored by PTA? Nothing? Under
Correct.
category A?
Correct.
So then the step is to be almost, do you go to the PTA meeting and be vetted through them then? How did that work?
Yeah, it was done through email, but
Oh, okay.
yes, yeah, so then the PTA, I guess then goes to administration of the school and says, hey, here's a program that we would like to introduce to the school.
So it wasn't that hard, right? I mean,
No,
just,
once we figured out what the steps were,
Okay.
then it's super easy,
Okay.
but the policy as it's written right now isn't super clear on how to move forward with that.
okay.
So we want to look at how, I wrote down what you said, look into how to make it more accessible, also considering costs and operation fees and things of that nature.
And we do have some requirements of union positions and the requirement that way that we honor those contracts, the work that needs to be allocated to custodial staff.
Versus a volunteer coming directly.
Yeah. Should,
But we can look into it.
you know,
Does that need to be a motion?
Nope.
not on the first.
Because we have an act on it, unless we, and because there's a lot.
Direct staff.
Do we,
It'd be a
We're
policy.
here to help.
can we,
So what's the policy?
Right.
That's what that's.
the policy next week? Or do that
I'd like us to have a little bit, I want to say next meeting, I'd like to have a little time to have him explore it.
Yeah.
Or work with him as well. Like what wants to. So I don't know when, but yes, we'll bring it back.
But not next.
Probably not.
But if not, we incur costs, then we have the cost of incur costs.
Yeah, I remember there was a lot of thought that went into why.
Kurt work with Ryan.
Thanks, Greg.
Any questions? Okay, so we'll talk about this later, maybe. Under be under old business then.
It'll probably be new business if we're bringing it forward, just like we would with
Right.
another, but I think we want to do some investigations first.
Okay.
Ms. Cassie.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now moving on to old business, second review and approval, retiring the 0 series and polishes procedures regards to planning. I know we talked about this at the last meeting. Were there any questions on that they may have for basically retiring the series policy procedures? So I'll need a motion to that.
I'll make the motion to adopt retiring the 0 series policies and procedures.
I will second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any questions or discussion regarding that? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Which carries. Okay, next on old business, second review and approval of policy 3122, excused and unexcused absences.
Right. The board asked me to look into letters and the 10-day letters, excessive absences letters. We did reach out. We can still best practice to communicate with families in that way. But what we are exploring is, can we do it through email? So we're still connecting, but it'll be through email. And Parent Square. I think Janine and Lisa have chatted and there's an obstacle there, maybe a barrier.
Okay.
But so we're exploring that. There is a attendance mark for student absence due to school. And those should not necessarily count in the excessive absences. The excessive absences does include excused and unexcused absences. The idea being, if you're missing school, you're missing school. So it's just that communication.
But there is an allocation for an educational related.
Yes,
event.
yes, yes. Yeah. I think that was it. Okay.
I think so.
Any other questions? I'll need a motion.
I'll make a motion
I'll second.
to adopt adoption 3122.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any other discussion or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. And then finally on old business section C. Second review and approval policy 1111, oath of office at detailed attachment.
According to the agenda, there's procedure. Did we skip something?
We asked that
4110 be pulled.
4110 be removed for right now.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
So it was not on the agenda. It was, and then it was removed.
Okay.
Well, I will need a motion for policy 1111.
I'll make a motion to approve policy 1111.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion on that? Questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. There. Up is the finance report, budget finance report, Daniel.
Everyone.
The driver fine these days.
What, driving.
Okay.
Yeah. It was a nice drive. Weather was great. Yeah. That's nice.
Yeah.
There wasn't any snow on the pass or anything.
Yeah, you remember that? This is the best year ever. It's perfect.
Marty?
So you're just.
It's having snow in Austin and we don't.
Oh, I got you. Sweet.
I'll never forget. But.
No, I can see, but all of you that planned out to the day.
District
don't
basketball
say
game.
it.
3 weeks later, they called us, closed all the schools. I'm like, yeah, this is great. Marty's been my fault. They said it too. They could have said, you should never start. Yeah, right.
All right, so first I'll I'll take a look at the enrollment comparisons. So here's January enrollment compared to December. We are up 2 in the core program, 1 at IRE, 1 at the high school. MP3 is flat, so a total increase of 2. Special ed enrollment continues to increase, up 7 from December. Our ECAP program is full at 40, as well as the TK program. TK is at 43. Well, actually, TK we're allowed to have 44, so it's been kind of fluctuating up and down between 43 and 44. The running start, it's been a busy year at running start. This year we're at 82. And dropout engagement decreased by 1.
Is there any way you could clarify, we've talked about this before, but with our special education, we've increased 7. We only had an enrollment increase of 2, so can I conclude that we just had more students now being qualified or enrolled into special education that are already in our buildings? Thank you.
Right. So for a student to get on the count for special ed, that means they have an IEP that's been established for them.
And it takes time.
So I think Aaron explained it, that there's that process that they have to go through.
Yeah. This is the comparison to the budget, so this gives you a better idea of funding wise the impacts. So in the core program we're up 6. That's IRE's down 1, middle school's up 4, and the high school's up 3. MP3 is up 7. Actually, we have been hovering around 215 for a number of years, so to be up a little bit in MP3, that's great and unusual for recent times. Special education, again, has some pretty crazy numbers right now. Fortunately, when we budgeted for special education, we tried to predict some growth there. But there's still some additional needs that we're considering going into next year's budget.
So I'm curious, if you say MP3 has kind of been flat at the 215.
Right.
I was at the 20th anniversary and families are on a wait list. So how is that possible?
Well, I imagine that's probably for the in-person program where there's
Correct.
limited numbers of students that can go in each classroom.
So this is the entire, okay.
Yeah, and so there's kind of a maximum amount that we can serve at 2 days a week. You know, if we were to, it would take a complete shift in the program to add more students.
If we'd had more portables and you split them in half rather than thirds, then we'd have capacity for more and we'd be able, I think we would fill it. Because the interest is there, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I don't believe there's any cap on the remote students that we serve, and so as we get in more remote students, we do serve those. So let's see. Again, running start. These are the highest numbers I've seen. So up quite a bit there. Any questions on the enrollment side of things?
What is dropout re-engagement? Under running start?
It's either BTCs, they have an impact program, or it's gonna be your open doors program through the CTA. I don't think it's that, is it? Because they have their own, it's their numbers they track. It's BTC, okay? Re-engagement.
Right. So this is the budget projection report. And there's three columns here that have been populated. with information, so October, November, and December. You can always see enrollment like all on one page in a snapshot, which can be interesting. So if you want to look in this green row here, you can see we started the year at 1786, which seems to be pretty common for us. We'll have a low month of enrollment, at least in the last few years in September, and then it kind of picks up to more closer to what our average will be in October. And you can see it's been slight growth, but fairly flat there. And then the pink will show you what we budgeted at. This next row is the beginning fund balance in purple. And then this top section here has our revenue figures. For each line represents a different revenue stream that the district has. The local property tax, we have 2 months, the more significant. October was one of those months. It's October and April, and then you get a little bit of extra in the month following each of those months, and that's just based on people paying their property taxes. We had 2,279,000 in October, and again, I won't go line by line, but I'll just kind of point out some of the interesting stuff and a little bit on how to read this report, since Jasmine's new. There's also this row up here on the apportionment payment percentage. And so we don't receive our apportionment evenly throughout the year. And so it's kind of interesting to see what percentage we receive. And there's a lower percentage in October and November, and also essentially what they do is they reduce the percentage that you're receiving the month after you receive your local property tax, because they're assuming that districts have money and they can handle that cash flow adjustment. And then there's a big boost in July and August. Really, that just happened at the legislative level when they were faced with a budget crisis, and they wanted to move money out of one biennium to another. And so it was like a one-time fix that now we're essentially stuck with. So you will see, an uptick in your apportionment in those last couple months of the year. So any of the apportionments, those numbers start with a 3 here. You can see we received 1.5 million in October, almost $1 million in November, and then 1.7 in December. And then you have your state grants. Those all start with a 4 here. And it's somewhat typical to have a couple of those not show up in September, and especially since the budget reductions happened at OSPI, they're a bit slower to approve our grants. And so we are getting those a little bit later in the year. An example of that would be the transition bilingual here. So in September and October, we didn't receive anything. And then in November, we received 100,000. And now in December, we're back to like a more normal amount of 40,000. And then you have any of our federal grants. Those all start with a 6 in this revenue code here, and they're all reimbursement basis. So that means that we have to spend the funds before we receive them. So there's always there's a 1 month lag of when you spend it and when you receive the funds. And typically we don't start receiving funds until November, because those grants oftentimes are not approved yet. And then you'll see at the end of the year in August, you end up getting 2 months. So in August, we'll make a claim for July expenditures, and then in September, we'll make a claim for August expenditures. And because we're on accrual basis accounting, those funds get accrued back to the current fiscal year. So just something to keep a lookout for. Another thing of note is all of our apportionment that we receive from September through December is based on how we budgeted our enrollment to be. And any increase or decrease in enrollment gets squared up in January, so we're coming up on that square up month, and we'll receive a little bit of extra money, but because we're not significantly over enrollment, it won't be, huge. And then these grants that you see that start with a 7 or 8, those are typically ones that we invoice for that are local grants. So there's also a line that'll have total enrollment or total cash receipts. That's this one in blue that's bolded here. And then there's under that line are expenditures, and it's broken down into salary, benefits, and accounts payable. I'll typically speak to if there's significant fluctuations in either of those categories. Salaries have been on pretty much average the last 3 months. And accounts payable, honestly, we're trending a bit lower than average. December's at 302,000. That's low, but I would expect January to be higher because we only had one AP run in December and we cut that off pretty early. So I expect a larger accounts payable month next month when I'm reporting that. Total cash disbursements are this orange row here. And then below that is a percentage. This budget percent is if we were to spend the budget equally throughout the year, what percentage we would be at. So through December, that would be 33%. And then there's actual of where we're at 31%. And so that's kind of like a quick check-in to see how we're doing financially. If that number is flip-flop and our actual is higher, it typically means something is not going as planned and we need to make some adjustments and shifts. We had a year like that a couple years ago, kind of when the financial crisis started, and then we've made a lot of adjustments to really fine tune our expenditures, and have been in alignment since then the last couple of years. Then this final line is our ending fund balance in yellow, and currently we're at 3.6 million.
And would you explain to Jasmine, how you budget the amount that you want to end with that in the fund balance?
Yeah, so ending fund balance, you want to have a certain percentage in there for cash flow purposes. As you can see, we're paying out about $3 million a month. So to be up above 3 million is a good place to be for our size district. There have been situations where state funding can get delayed. And so it's important for us to have enough cash on hand so we can pay our bills and pay our staff. And so being up above 3 million is a more comfortable place to be. Over the last couple of years, we've been working to grow that, where we were in the 2 million range last year and the year before. And if you have any like major equipment breakdowns or anything like that, which we had a scare a couple of years ago, those are the types of things that if something like that came up and you didn't have enough cash on hand, that can put a district in binding conditions pretty quickly.
I think that does a really good job of making sure that we're on budget.
Yeah, we've been pretty focused on financial stability the last couple of years.
Well, the whole district's been doing a really good job, like being accountable, so.
Oh yeah, it's a district effort for sure.
Back up on two things, and I realized I said, oh, it's BTC impact, which doesn't really tell you what that is. So It's a program BTC has for students that are no longer engaged in high school and have not gotten a diploma. They can get high school credit. They typically don't. They don't have to meet very often, but they can also pick up AA credit, so they'll get college credit. The fact that they're engaged with BTC is a good thing. Whether it's the best fit for them or not remains to be seen, and we're working on re-engagement outreach. It's one of the reasons we started an open doors program here as a satellite program within CTA, because they meet every day and they go through a curriculum to get a high school diploma. BTC Impact does not make the high school diploma a priority. And then the other piece, just for everybody, is we still are running, it's not much, but we're running positive enrollment. We're 1% up. And I think everybody else is almost 1% down in the count. So we're not seeing the drop off like others are seeing. But it's slow, it's slow.
Nope. Still a good place to be being positive in the current climate. There's a lot of districts that have been just losing enrollment and having to budget more and more conservatively as far as like expecting less and less students to show up because they were having budgets where they would have less enrollment. And that's when it gets tricky because the majority of your funding is based on the enrollment that you have. And in the budget process, you're staffing based on expecting those revenues to come in. And if you don't have the enrollment, you have less revenue. And so you may have obligations to pay more expenditures than money that you have. Any questions on the budget projection report? So that's really specific to the general fund. This is the budget status report. This is something that's legally required to be included in the board reports, and so that will always be there. This first page is the general fund. That's where we do most of our business. And again, that budget, this spreadsheet, the budget projection report is the same information, but with more detail. So I don't typically spend any time on the general fund, and then I'll just go through kind of big information for the other funds. This is October's. We have a capital projects fund, and there's a technology levy that's included in that capital projects fund. So anytime you see the general fund receiving a higher amount of tax for the year, you'll see the same thing for the capital projects fund. And those monies, that's the technology levy. So we received 406,000 in technology levy funds in October. For that technology levy, we run all the expenditures in the general fund throughout the year. And then we do a transfer from the capital projects fund to the general fund to cover those expenditures. The debt service fund, the purpose of this fund is to collect taxes to pay our bonds. That's all it does. And so if we issue a bond, those monies will go to pay for a specific project, and then we will levy basically the exact amount of money that we need to pay those bonds each year. We received 531,000 in bond levy taxes in October. And so the ending fund balance in October was $1.5 million in the debt service fund. Then we have the ASB fund. This is a fund that we have activity at the high school and the middle school. It's basically, there's this thing called the CARS criteria: cultural, recreational, athletic, social. So it falls within one of those four categories, and there's various clubs The high schools is a bit more elaborate. They have more funds, more clubs, and they do more fundraising. At the middle school, they just do like one large fundraiser to help support their ASB. There isn't typically a lot of things to talk about when going through ASB finances. Then we
Again, sorry, what was that acronym? Cultural?
CARS, cultural, athletic, recreational, and social.
Thank you.
So it's like non-curricular stuff. You can't have anything that a student, you can't pay for anything out of ASB that a student is receiving a grade on. And then the final fund here is the transportation vehicle fund. And the purpose of the transportation vehicle fund is to buy new buses, or you can do major bus repairs. We don't ever use it for that. It's more if we have a repair for a bus, it's more of a minor repair that is paid for in the at our transportation budget out of the general fund. So what happens is we buy a bus and it goes on a depreciation schedule, and then the state pays us back for the base value of that bus over the useful life of that bus. So it's pretty important that you have all of your buses in your fleet on that schedule. And then when a bus goes off of the schedule, you want to sell that bus and get a new bus, because that's how you continue to get more revenue and have working like a newer working fleet.
That depreciation schedule might increase to, was it 15 years? From 13 to 15? And was that gonna be decided at this legislation?
It's the governor's proposed budget, so
Okay.
whether it gets traction with the legislature, we'll see, but it's one of the things that.
Yeah, that'd be pretty lame.
Yeah.
Cause I mean,
Let's see. 54 would,
Yeah.
yeah, it's frustrating.
it would make it so all of our buses are older, and it would take longer to be able to buy a new bus. It would be an immediate reduction in the amount of money that we would receive in the transportation vehicle fund. So it could throw a wrench in, how quickly we are able to replace our buses. And that's like, it's planned out in the future, like 13 years, like the schedule that we run. And we've worked hard to have that schedule in a healthy place where we're receiving a couple of buses each year, where 20 years ago, Meridian wasn't in a very good place in regards to our fleet. And we had buses that were not on the schedule, so we weren't receiving money. And we had to run some leases to get all the buses back on the schedule. Now enough time has gone past that those buses have fallen off and been replaced, and we've been trying to replace them a couple buses a year to spread that out, because there was like 8 buses that we bought all at once, and so now we're replacing them a couple every year. This year,
Maintenance costs are just gonna go up too, because the
Yep.
longer you have something.
yeah, it's not a good, it would not be a good thing for schools if that goes through. This in October, there is something to go over. We had 2 new buses, so there's 331,000 in expenditures there. There's 268,000 remaining in the transportation vehicle fund, and we did just receive a bus. So the buses they take about 18 months to receive them. You order them and it's about a year and a half before you receive that bus. And so you have to plan very far in advance. Sometimes you can get lucky and they may have an extra one in inventory that meets your specs, and they can get that to you quickly, but that's kind of few and far between. we have one more bus coming because of that, like. Just it taking so long. It used to be about a year pre-COVID, and now it's bumped up to about a year and a half. So we just received the last bus we had on order in January, so you'll see that expenditure coming up, which will kind of wipe out most of what we have in the TVF fund. We receive funding, the depreciation revenue once a year, that's in August, and so that's kind of the bump up. So you want to time your orders so you receive those buses in the fall, which we've done a pretty good job on. November, there wasn't really anything standing out to go over. I did want to pull up one thing in December. That's under the debt service fund. So we make payments on our bonds twice a year. On December 1st, we have a principal and interest payment. And then we have an interest only payment on June 1st. We made a payment of $1,254,000 on December 1st. We're running towards the end of these bonds. These are 2010 bonds. And so we're seeing like a good amount of principal being paid off. $1,095,000 in principal, and then the interest was $159,900. And then that brings us down. Every time we make a payment, it typically brings us down in the between $300,000 and $400,000 range. And then we collect those the taxes up until we make the payment, and then it kind of brings us back down to that level. That was all I had tonight.
Thank you, Dan.
Yeah.
Thank you for the color coding, so it's all we.
Yeah. Try to keep it consistent too.
Yeah.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's good to be here.
Line, sorry.
Sure.
Where's the here?
So on the like the budget status report, that'll always be Fund 40.
Catch that one.
Which is ASB.
Okay, I just did like a quick search for that.
Next page.
Oh, it would probably say associate student body fund.
Sure. Like, yeah, usually it's like second. It's like, at date, things like that. So AFC is the second. Like I said, there.
Oh, I see it. There we go. Sorry.
Okay. Thank you, Daniel. Now on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Everett.
So I'll talk about this picture in a minute, but this is our.
You've been busy so far this year. 2026 has been busy.
That's right. Yeah, this is Laurel Valley.
It's been great seeing you across the stand, just so you know.
Appreciate that. Yeah, it's been good. That was a good event. So a few things to report on. We held our monthly superintendent's meeting, and we talked about feedback on Fun Schools Now and how that was really a positive situation in terms of community coming out, being able to talk about all of our financial circumstances for Ferndale, Meridian, Blaine, and Mel Baker. And it got good press across the state. And then Marty and I went to the conference, and then it was talked about at the conference as well. We also talked about preparing for the legislative conference. We didn't have many districts in the county attend. We had some. And then we had a prolonged conversation about Whatcom Discovery. And this is a program that it's a cooperative that is designed to be smaller in nature. Staff of personnel who are trained and equipped to serve elementary, middle, and high school students experiencing significant social, emotional, behavioral difficulties. We typically have 1 to 2 slots. Do we have 3 slots? 2 slots now.
I think we're at
3. I think we're at 3. What that means is we pay ahead to preserve space so that we can have 3 students served in that program. And the reason why we had a conversation is because we wanted to be aligned as superintendents with the directors of our special ed programs and understand what the ESD was doing in their management of Whatcom Discovery. Why that matters is we've seen an uptick in the population at Whatcom Discovery. They typically were 28 to 30 and they've ballooned up to 50. Wow. That follows the closing of Skagit Discovery, which was also managed, but they had leadership issues. And for student safety, they closed that program. And what we heard in this meeting, the ESD was represented. What we heard is that they are working to try and reestablish. And they also heard from us saying that we pay into a service and a place to support students, that we want that quality of service preserved. And so more to come on that. I think one of the things that they're having difficulty in the Skagit realm is they would really like it to be a school, like a closed school or elementary school, and they're having a hard time locating that. So
So what happens to our funding that's going towards that?
we haven't run into difficulty being able to serve our kids, but we wanted to make sure that we had a conversation before we got to that point. And I think it sent a message that said we're paying attention. We want to make sure we don't lose options for our kids. You know, so it's just something we want to make sure that we're watching. And they recognize, the ESD recognizes that we appreciate the way that they've provided the service. And we think that the leadership at the Whatcom Discovery facility is quite excellent. They've been working really hard. And this isn't a reflection on the work that they've done, but it is a concern about what's the prolonged circumstance. And so that was a major conversation that we had. I mentioned that the legislative conference, and so Director Gray joined me here. We had several speakers and sessions that really circled around the concept of lack of revenue. And I want to be clear, there is a lot more revenue in the state than there ever has been. The spending is the issue. And so the prioritization of education issues is where we're seeing that we aren't going to have funding. So the overall operating budget's projected to be a $2.5 billion shortfall. When we look at the operation of educational funding in 2019, the overall budget, 52% of that was going to education in the state. Now it's 43%. So the common thing you'll hear from some legislators is, oh, we're putting lots of money towards education. We're putting more in than we've ever done before. And that's true. But with respect to the total amount, it's less. It's about 43%. So inflation, you know, all the different things that talk about the operation or the operating budget, excuse me, in its increase, the share of it going to K-12, because K-12 expenses have gone up as well, is smaller. And so there were conversations about what we know about the big three, where we talked about MSOCs and we talked about transportation, we talked about special ed, levy equalization. We had Representative Rude and Gerges there. They talked about the governor's proposal to cut TK by 25%. They had sessions on how to communicate needs to your community. A lot of really good information, but what it's going to boil down to is being present in Olympia and weighing in. I've already weighed in on early learning. We've sent letters, as I've shared with you earlier. So we have really good support from our local legislators. But they are three of the larger group, and they don't all sit on education committees. So we just have to keep pressing. I don't know if you have anything you want to share.
No, I think when I was moved down to Seattle, I think the biggest frustration that I heard mostly from, so if not from us, is, you know, they'll start coming out with the unfunded mandates. They're like, oh, you got to do this, but we're not going to give you any money to do it. So and I heard that a lot from, you know, different schools, 1A schools, 4A schools, you know, so well, don't give us unfunded mandates. One thing that I was, if I'd say, the negative from it I got is some of the state legislators saying, unfortunately, we're going to be making some decisions that aren't going to be popular with the group, you know, but like they're laying the groundwork to let it down. But I wish I had that graph that you showed me. You were playing at the 53, and then it's not more, it's less. But yeah, that analogy of the town hall, it's like, you know, saying, here's $500.
Yeah.
You get to Chicago. I don't care how you get there, you got $500 to do it. And so you don't eat, maybe you take a bite, but as long as you get there, that's all. And I was like, you know, that's not realistic.
Right.
You know, I mean, you're taking away from kids, families in the future. Yeah, I found a little more frustrating. But we're making a voice. That's the important thing. So.
WAF funding, I'll send, it's called wafunding.org, and it's a group of associations in the state that has captured some of the major issues and why we're in a funding crisis, and has some good graphics, talks about the total overall budget and how it's shrunk.
Well, I think that
It happens.
it's not across the board experience, because like, we're faring better than some of our other district schools from the reporting. And then you probably have your schools in more affluent areas of Seattle that have no idea there's a shortage in funding. So it's not across the board of your experiences within this group.
Yeah, and to your point, actually, a lot more people are paying attention to the funding crisis because you have a Bellevue that would fall in a more affluent area that's in binding conditions. Right? So it is hitting everywhere in terms of the lack of funding. And then we have issues where they increase the capacity for districts to go out to their communities and get more levy funding. Right? And that's something some communities can do and some things other communities cannot do. Right? And so then the question becomes, will they do a levy equalization where districts who have less influence get some more support? And then that becomes an increase to the state. So none of it's easy, and kids are being impacted. They're balancing the budget on the backs of kids.
Literally anyone who listens to me, I will tell them the TV tray story from one.
Yeah.
And that's been hitting home with folks.
It is not about mismanagement. They are not providing enough funding for schools to operate.
And that's just blame. I mean, that could be going on all throughout the state.
Correct. That's just what we know gets in our back.
Because at the legislative conference that they talked about, yeah, up in Washington County, they had a town hall, which is very, but they spoke hard about how that town meeting. The thing, so I'm just sure that we're just the one that actually reported the key trays. I'm sure it's all over throughout the state.
Well,
It's gonna be even worse.
Yeah.
You know.
We can give examples of that in our own way of using closets for offices and at middle school and, you know, things of that nature. Just, we could start making our own list.
Right. Sure.
And send it up to like pull.
Michelle, for anybody who might not know about TV tray or anybody listening online, do you want to tell the story about Link's TV tray situation?
Oh, I don't think I could. It was at the classroom was at capacity, unable to house additional desks. And so the number of students within the classroom, they had to resort to using just a chair and a TV tray for their learning space.
Cause they couldn't fit no desk inside the room. And what's that classic 37? I can remember. Something like, wow.
It gets you to like a lecture type hall for learning.
Right.
Not classroom, like
Pulling, like in our school, pulling students into the commons.
with a auditorium. Get your English.
So we will continue, a follow-up on that is, and you'll see on the calendar, but we have several districts that are gonna join. We're actually, Logan and then Marty and I are gonna go down on the 29th. That's Advocacy Day. We'll go on the Hill. We have a meeting with all three of our legislators at 3:30 in the afternoon. Also we'll be meeting earlier on behalf of WSRMP and that ledge group to talk about ways to cut cost of insurance. So we'll be down there on the 29th. On the 14th, we had an NCTA admin council meeting, and just some of this is really, Jasmine, because of being new, but we've been good partners with NCTA. We host some programming on our campus, fire science, allied health, open doors, and welding. The consortium member districts for NCTA are Mount Vernon, Burlington Edison, Anacortes, Concrete, Cedar Woolley, LaConner, Skagit Valley College, and then Meridian and Bellingham. Meridian and Bellingham are the only two Whatcom County schools or school districts. Skagit Valley College used to have students come over and take courses at NCTA because they're on the same campus. They don't anymore. They went through some things that they've been doing with some student-led conferences and really partnering with other skill centers to make sure that the way that they're sharing with their families about the things that they're doing are valued. In the enrollment report, both Meridian and Bellingham constitute 75 students. It's fairly balanced, I think, 38 to 40 are Bellingham, that would make up the other half. Blaine, Linden, and Nookside Valley constitute 17 students. That's of interest to me as we talk about moving to the Whatcom County School Center and having greater enrollment from all Whatcom County districts, right? There's a little bit about the chicken and the egg. What programs do you provide to get interest before you actually have a facility to house them? And then how do you get the funding from the state to build it to be able to have more programs than what you have? So I'm making a case for early childhood ed to have that come in this next year. We'll see what happens. It depends on student interest. And so enrollment for next year is February 14th. Our principals and counselors know that. One of the things that was shared is that AASA, which is the superintendent, the National Superintendents Association, they have a redefining ready cohort, which falls directly in line with the work we're doing around what we want as a springboard for students. So college ready, career ready, life ready indicators. The premise is that students deserve a balanced approach to success that honors the multiple pathways to meaningful lives. The effort is to learn strategies where career, college, and life readiness aren't competing, but are complementary to holistic student development. So some of the things that they have as they talk about expanded work-based learning opportunities, access to college pathways within their high school, dual credit opportunities, NCTA and skill centers offer dual credit. And you don't have to have that exclusively. You can have a combination of college and high school and skill center programming as well. Strengthen executive functioning skills. They talk about neurodivergence and being able to provide opportunities for students to work in environments they're not used to working in, and ensure students have life skills necessary for independent living, financial management, career navigation. So they have an actual summit in Mansfield, Texas, and they are doing a showcase of their early learning program and their shared time centers as exemplars. And so there's an opportunity for any of the consortium member districts to send a representative to see those in action. NCTA is what's called a shared time center. So if we go back east, skill centers are considered youth prison places. So the terminology is different. So when you hear shared time center, it means skill center over here. But I'm checking, I know that the chair, because of our investment in the early learning program, I'm interested, but because the chair is interested, we're checking on what that would cost to see what would be involved there. I did go and enjoy the unified basketball game on the 14th. And that was a close game. It was 42-44 at the end. Not where it won, but yeah, but it was great. It's everybody cheering both ways. And
There might be one, I think, these are Friday night.
Friday, 7 o'clock. I don't miss, yeah, they're so great. So
what time?
that, I had clarification on that. too.
Okay, well,
Jim said 7 o'clock.
good. And then one of my roles with AASA as a liaison with WASA, we meet online once a month for Region 1. Region 1 is all your West Coast states, Alaska, Nevada, Montana, Idaho, you know what the states. And so we come together to talk about what's happening and what are we looking at. And one of the things that we have is we have access to AASA's congressional legislative representative, Sasha Podesky, and she says that we should expect to get similar federal funding that we've received in the past. However, we should not expect it to come on time. Congress has to approve the apportionment for schools in the country by January 30th, which happens to also coincide with the time that they need to fund Congress or fund the government. And so on one hand, it's good. She also said, don't be surprised if there's some small cuts, but just for context for us, federal is about $600,000 in our annual budget. Is that correct, Dana?
Don't like it. It's more like $1 million.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. So significant. Okay. So what she said is the effort of the current administration to dismantle the Department of Ed is disruptive. So even though we should get the funding, don't expect it to happen on time, which means we then have to use our apportionment. In July is difficult. And so in any case, we have our work cut out for us. And then we also did some discussions about the National Education Conference in February. And my last slide, things coming up. So tomorrow and Friday, this is interesting. So out of 295 districts, we have 28 or fewer superintendents with 8 years or more experience.
Wow.
Been huge turnover over the last 4 or 5 years. And so WASA has collected a group of people to be mentors to new superintendents, and it's some specific training. And so I feel honored to be part of that group, but I'm going to be in Renton for that. And then on Sunday and Monday, the risk pool has their annual board meeting and legislative meeting. And then we will go down on the 29th, as I described earlier, for advocacy. We have a board meeting here on the 4th. And then I reported a couple meetings ago, I think in November, that Rep Timmons from the 42nd and Rep Santos, who is the chair of the Education Committee for the House, we met at the Bellingham Library, representatives from districts in Whatcom County, to talk about the lack of mental health supports and the loss of funding. And so there is a lunch meeting to have significant individuals from districts be present and engage, and maybe we can put plugs in the holes that we're anticipating. So that's happening on the 6th. And then I am attending the National Education Conference in Nashville, Tennessee. And as a reminder, that's a link to the AASA role I have with WASA. I go also in July, and that gets paid for through AASA. They fund that in July. And then locally, MP3 had their 20th anniversary yesterday, so we saw that. Appreciate you being there, Michelle. Thank you. And then happy to report we had our first steering committee meeting today for the Early Learning Center.
Oh.
And so that's pretty exciting. The architects lead a lot of that work and have community engagement as one of the things. We're going to be working on a design team. I do want you all to know, and this will come up again, Whatcom Early Learning Center, WELC, is what we've been calling this Early Learning Center. There is already in existence for many years the Whatcom Center for Early Learning. Early on in this whole effort, 2.5, 3 years ago, they were pretty offended that we used that. Didn't know at the time, and we already started a federal grant through Senator Murray, and we cannot change that name until we expend those funds, or we won't be able to reimburse. So we're not going there. But one of the things we'll do at the end of this process is we'll have a naming scheme. We don't want to be a bad partner.
Yeah.
So Whatcom Early Learning Center works for now, but it'll be something that we'll want to go through some process to change that. As a reminder, we are not running this Early Learning Center. We're going to be putting out RFQs for somebody to run it. So it'll be
We are
some
going to
kind
be
of provider.
running it, but we will have the ability to name it.
Yeah.
Okay.
We already have a naming convention that we.
That's what I was
Things about
going to
nature.
suggest too.
I have no idea, but we can look into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be great. So,
Okay. Thank you.
Lee, Dr. Everett, on to, of course, the board members had to go to work today, I guess they got day jobs too. Information from board directors. Anyone?
We've got some fun dates coming up, as we talked about earlier, Laurel Valley will be playing a unified game on Friday at 7 o'clock against Lakeland.
Is that home?
It's at home, yep.
Thank you.
This weekend, we've got our cheerleaders heading to Bellevue for state qualifiers, so this is their last chance, hoping that works out. And senior night recognitions are coming up. So January 30th, we've got boys basketball and girls cheer. And on February 3rd, we have girls basketball. So as always, it would be great to see folks there to support our graduating seniors as they wrap up some of their seasons.
Yeah. I talked to Brian last with some good news, so we had a Winter Storm Classic basketball game. About the tournament we did right after Christmas. And talked last night after paying all the bills and everything that we secured enough money to get a new scoreboard for the South Gym.
That was the goal, right?
That was the goal. And so, I mean, several people, Brian, Brian was the master the whole thing. There's several people in the community donated their time, donated their wages and everything,
So nice.
so forth. So, and then maybe you say, Brian did say the good news. He said, talk to you, he had to go get 3 bids. He says, fortunately, he said, the lowest bid that came in was a scoreboard that I wanted to get.
Yeah.
And the scoreboard I didn't want to get was the highest bid. So is that, I was right, something like that?
Yeah.
So the stars aligned, everything was that, but he says this tournament was successful without having to get funds from the district or anything like that, the fundraising for the storm. So here's so brand new scoreboard coming to the South Gym.
That's so
You
cool.
say, do you have a time frame?
Was that when it would be in? He didn't actually give me. He did check on to the curtain for the South Gym, that would be on the south side. Just to have that motorized one coming out, it's going to be about $3,000. Right now, we're deciding to find the budget. And to your point, it's like, how often will we need that curtain throughout the year? If it's only for like 3 days out here, if it is, but it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So
Oh, the curtain doesn't work right now?
We don't have,
we don't have one at all.
The South Gym.
we're talking about bright. Like coming in through.
Oh, that's what you're talking about.
It's a certain times every morning, like the 11 o'clock game, it's just where it comes through. If you're the team on the board and you're looking south, the reflection off the floor, you can't even coach your team. So you got, but it's only there for like a couple hours, right?
It's a shiny floor.
But it does
It's a
get,
shiny floor. There you go.
it's very warm in there.
Jay, two
Out
shiny
of town
floors.
teams.
So anyway, but it's something that he did say he's gonna continue to look into. There's a local family or someone that actually has business and stuff like that, that possibly in time we could look for some donation of work and time, or maybe next year if we do this Trojan Strong class, and that's just one of the items. What's that? Yeah, Steve. Yeah, Steve Hogan. So anyway, but hats off to Brian and then, and all the community members that, put in the time. They stayed around and helped Brian clean up the stands, take out the trash, everything like that. So it was a community effort. So I thought it was pretty cool.
Thank you too.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it. Otherwise, we have the signature of our official documents and our meeting is adjourned.
It's money.